Beneath a ruined archway, echoing with ancient energy, Shin Hyul walked forward alone. Blue magical wisps followed him, illuminating the darkened stone floor ahead. A monstrous creature emerged, its red eyes glowing with murderous rage. It roared and lunged at the nearby figures, but Shin Hyul stood firm, summoning an intense surge of mana. From the sky, a storm of lightning crashed down, shaking the forest and splitting the ground with force. Centered within a glowing circle, Shin Hyul gathered the spell's full energy. His body resonated with magical patterns, his eyes filled with sharp resolve. Magic pulsed through him, not just as a weapon, but as a message. He would no longer flee. He cast a massive binding spell, freezing the terrain in layers of blue energy. The earth stilled, the threat subdued. From the surge emerged a spirit-like woman of ice summoned by Shin Hyul's call. With her power, she sealed the raging beast in an arctic prison. The battlefield fell silent, frost clinging to every surface. Shin Hyul, surrounded by shattered remnants of power, stepped forward, calm, unyielding. Moments later, in the towering Shin family building, he stood before his father. Once disgraced, Shin Hyul now faced him with confidence, vowing to uphold their name and surpass all expectations. No longer a shadow, but a legacy reborn. At the grand estate of Korea's most powerful magical clan, Shin Hyul stood proudly before his father, vowing to become the world's strongest mage and lead the Shin family. With unwavering belief in his unmatched potential, his father urged him to reach the pinnacle of all magic. Shin Hyul promised success without fail, driven by a desire to surpass both his brothers and his father. 2 years later, at the prestigious Obelisk Academy of Magic, students gathered for their practical exams. Among them was Baek Sayuk, confident and arrogant, who mocked Shin Hyul for his inability to perform even basic magic, while others used AI-based casting systems with ease. Shin Hyul remained an outlier, unable to integrate with modern spell chips. Sayuk's test began, and he swiftly summoned beasts and destroyed them using AI-enhanced fire magic. Applauded by instructors, he arrogantly declared the rankings already decided, assuming Shin Hyul would remain at the bottom. But as Shin Hyul stepped forward, the atmosphere shifted. Despite lacking implants, he calmly prepared his spell. Channeling raw mana manually, he began forming a magic formula the old way, step by step, with focus and control. Unlike others relying on machines, Shin Hyul embraced tradition, relying only on his own mastery to face the trial ahead. Determined to defy every expectation, as the exam began, Shin Hyul's slow incantation drew mocking laughter from the spectators. His outdated casting method, incompatible with modern AI-enhanced systems, caused whispers of failure. Voices in his head echoed their judgment, calling him unfit, urging him to quit magic altogether. His efforts were not enough. The test time expired, and the announcement of failure followed, sealing the spectators' expectations. Kneeling amidst the aftermath, Shin Hyul clenched his fists. He acknowledged defeat, but found a small victory in his faster incantation speed. Even as his father abandoned all hope and sent medicine to dissolve the mana circle within him, Shin Hyul held firm. He refused to give up on his dream, choosing the path of traditional magic. Shin Hyul immersed himself in ancient tomes. Without access to AI chips or digital aids, he relied solely on books, an overwhelming collection slowly consuming his room. One unfamiliar book among the pile caught his attention. It was old, ornate, and mysteriously unfamiliar. Opening it, he discovered the name Ray Bell Beitner, legendary archmage and originator of magic. The name stirred old memories. As he flipped through the pages, a burst of light erupted from the book. Arcane symbols and energy surged outward surrounding him. Shocked, Shin Hyul staggered back, overwhelmed by a brilliance that signaled the beginning of something extraordinary. As Shin Hyul opened the glowing book, a voice echoed from within. Ray Bell Beitneo, the ancient archmage, spoke directly to him. A spectral figure appeared, offering the grimoire to one who shared his magical constitution. The pages shimmered, resonating with Shin Hyul's presence. The voice acknowledged him as the chosen one. A surge of energy flowed into his body as the magical connection solidified. Unaware of the book's significance, Shin Hyul resumed his daily routine. At school, whispers followed him, students mocking his past failure and AI incompatibility. Those who failed the practical exam were normally expelled, yet Shin Hyul remained. Though he was seen as powerless, he was unaware that his fate had already begun to shift. The next day at the academy, Shin Hyul sat alone in the cafeteria until Ji Sunshan approached. Despite his light-hearted appearance, Sunshan was a top-ranking student and a third-circle magician. Unlike others, he treated Shin Haeul as an equal. He joined him, joking about food and casually sharing company. Their friendship offered rare comfort. Shin Haeul mentioned a strange book he discovered. After page 3, the contents vanished completely. Though seemingly broken, he knew it wasn't ordinary. Something within that book had already chosen him, and from that point forward, the path of traditional magic would no longer be forgotten. While eating with Ji Sunchan, Shin Haeul explained the mysterious book that glowed and spoke when opened. He suspected other students might have tampered with it, but what stood out was its strange content. The book claimed to be left by Raybel Bitaneo, passing on his legacy to a rightful successor. Shin Haeul revealed that only someone with a matching constitution could access its magic. Sunchan laughed, intrigued, and asked if he could try opening it too. Shin Haeul hesitated before revealing the book's shocking instruction. It required creating a mana circle not in the heart, but in the brain. Sunchan was alarmed, realizing the danger, and suggested rechecking the text together. Later that night, in the student dormitory, the two examined the book. As Sunchan attempted to open it, nothing happened. Despite effort, the pages remained sealed. Frustrated, he gave up and left. But once alone, Shin Haeul held the book again, and it opened effortlessly. The pages that were once blank now revealed glowing text. A voice addressed Shin Haeul as the successor, explaining that most mages form mana circles in their hearts. However, for someone like him, that path was flawed. As Shin Haeul read further, he understood. The traditional method didn't suit him because he was meant to wield a different kind of magic entirely. As Shin Haeul held the book again, its pages flared with golden light. A new message appeared. If he wished to inherit its power, he must destroy the mana circle in his heart, and instead form one in his brain. The idea seemed reckless. Shin Haeul was aware that mana in the brain was dangerously toxic, and could result in death or permanent damage. The book's demand felt like a death sentence. Struggling with doubt, he considered the risks. Despite his fear, curiosity drove him to seek validation. The next day, he brought the book to a school instructor and requested a magical analysis. The teacher examined it carefully but found no traces of enchantment or magical energy. To him, it was just an old book. Shin Haeul thanked him but was left more confused. Outside, Shin Haeul reflected on what this meant. Even Ji Sunchan, one of the strongest students, couldn't open the book. Neither could the teacher. Yet Shin Haeul had accessed it effortlessly. That confirmed it. He was different. He wasn't just compatible with the book. He was chosen. Though uncertain of the path ahead, Shin Haeul felt the truth settle in. The book might actually be real, and he might be the one destined to revive a long-forgotten form of magic. Late at night, Shin Haeul sat alone, staring at the pills sent by his father. Taking them would destroy the mana circle in his heart, the only thing keeping his magic alive. His father wanted him to abandon magic entirely and focus on theory, but Shin Haeul refused to give up. With trembling hands, he chose a path no one else dared. He'd already lost everything. Fear no longer held power over him. With resolve burning in his eyes, he whispered to himself, he would die today to be reborn. Shin Haeul's body trembled violently as his mana spiraled out of control. A searing pain shot through his chest. The mana circle linked to his heart was fracturing, collapsing to the floor. He clutched his chest, overwhelmed by agony. It wasn't ordinary pain. It was the unmistakable signal of a magician's death. His core was disintegrating, severing his connection to magic. In desperation, he activated a forbidden technique, circulating mana directly through his brain. It was an act considered suicidal, but for Shin Haeul, there was no alternative. As the intense pain subsided slightly, he felt a flicker of life return. Yet, he hovered at the edge of death, numb, confused, and fading. At that moment, a voice emerged through the darkness. A whisper echoed in his mind, asking if future generations could hear. Surrounded by glowing spirits, Shin Haeul floated weightlessly as mana enveloped him. The elements seemed to harmonize with him. It wasn't just survival, it felt like awakening. The mana sang, as if blessing his rebirth. He awoke on the floor, breathless yet alive. The once blank page of an old book now revealed glowing letters. As the voice grew clearer, it congratulated him. The book's name was Idrid, and it would be the start of Shin Haeul's new legend. Through the mysterious book Idrid, Shin Haeul received a message from a long-forgotten archmage. The voice, filled with power and warmth, declared that all of its magical knowledge would be passed on to those who followed. Shin Haeul was no longer just a reader, he had been chosen. From that moment, he was acknowledged as a disciple, bound to the legacy of an ancient magician. Days later, Shin Hyeol returned to his academy, blending into routine classes. Yet the book continued to update itself with new knowledge. Each entry expanded his understanding of magic, making the learning process unexpectedly thrilling. Idrid held ancient wisdom, far deeper than any textbook. While most magicians struggled to control mana in the brain due to its conflicting will, Shin Hyeol was different. His brain didn't reject mana, it accepted it. This made him uniquely resistant to AI chips that interfaced with the mind, explaining his past incompatibility with magical devices. However, a sudden announcement changed the atmosphere. A professor declared a new rule for the upcoming midterms. Those who failed would be expelled. The policy had been enforced by none other than the Shin family's head. Shin Hyeol's father. Whispers spread, and mocking glances turned toward him. In that moment, Shin Hyeol clenched his jaw. This challenge was personal. As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Shin Hyeol arrived at the AR training center, weighed down by cost and determination. The high rental price stung, 200,000 won per HR, but there was no alternative. He needed a private space to test his progress. At the counter, he calmly requested 1 hour alone. The clerk recognized him immediately, a noble from the Shin family, long rumored to be incompatible with AI-based magic. With quiet resolve, Shin Hyeol ignored the whispers and entered room 14. Inside, he activated the training program. The Wolf Challenge quests loaded, spawning a pack of simulated monsters. Though low-ranked, facing them simultaneously was no easy feat. Yet, for Shin Hyeol, it was the perfect trial. Drawing power from his reconstructed mana circle, his infinity circle, he launched into action. Water surged from his hands, shaped by magic, channeled through his brain, not his heart. Each movement was sharp and precise. His attacks overwhelmed the wolves with force and control that surprised even him. Unlike other magicians, he could circulate mana through his entire body. His suppressed potential was finally breaking free. Flames followed water as his mastery deepened. But amidst his triumph, the voice from Idrid reminded him, this was only the beginning. His journey still had a long way to go. The infinity circle, though powerful, was only the foundation of a greater path, Baitneo-style magic, guided by the mysterious voice. Shin Hyeol learned that true magic control came from intent shaped within the mind, not the heart. As he absorbed this truth, he took the first step into a forgotten school of magic, one driven by will, clarity, and inner vision. After completing his training, Shin Hyeol quietly exited the center. The clerk, curious about his progress, checked the records. Shock struck him. Shin Hyeol had cleared the Wolf Challenge in 6 minutes and 37 seconds, an international competition level time. Disbelieving, the man smashed the device, assuming it was broken. But as Shin Hyeol walked away with calm confidence, a new reality set in. His legend had just begun. Shin Hyeol stood at the center of his newly formed infinity circle, his body glowing with raw mana. Forming the first circle, Simmel had tested him deeply. The knowledge within Idrid's book defied conventional magic, forcing him to rethink everything he once believed. The book's vague teachings compared mana to limbs, urging the mind and heart to guide it freely, yet their meaning remained elusive. As he attempted to unlock its secrets, he faced a frustrating mental barrier, the wall of enlightenment, a limit encountered by all magicians. Choosing to persist, he focused on circulating mana throughout his entire body, just as the book instructed. 10 hours passed. Exhaustion should have followed, but his body felt balanced. Even so, the strain of sustaining full body circulation was mentally draining. He pushed himself harder, eager to master the technique. Recalling the praise he once received as a child prodigy, he reflected on his father's expectations. Now, even forming a single circle in his brain was difficult. Yet in this challenge, he found clarity. Perfection, he realized, was an illusion, a constraint imposed by pride. As mana flowed through him, he finally understood. The vague words in the book were true. Mana had become his arms and legs. For the first time, he truly felt it. Shin Hyeol let his thoughts guide his flame, no longer bound by strict formulas. Drawing from Idrid's book, he activated spells with free intent, casting without incantation. This approach differed from AI-assisted magic, which relied on consistent, pre-coded spell structures. Bitna's method emphasized shaping spells directly through imagination, allowing their form to evolve naturally. Shin Hyeol conjured burning phoenixes, their forms shifting mid-flight. It was raw, flexible power, magic unchained from traditional frameworks. Though it strained him physically, he was only at the first circle and already pushing past the wall that halted most magicians. For the first time, he felt like he was reaching something beyond expectations. Later at school, he was summoned for a visitor. To his surprise, it was his father. They met in a quiet drawing room after years of strained silence. His father acknowledged Shin Hail's presence, but his expression remained stern. He quickly dismissed the meeting, showing little warmth. As they sat down, Shin Hail explained he hadn't taken the medication his father had sent. Instead, he focused on improving his magic. With confidence, he declared he had made progress. His father, unimpressed, questioned the word progress, reducing his efforts to a foolish ambition. Despite the dismissive response, Shin Hail stayed calm. He knew the strength he was building was real. Shin Hail declared his goal with conviction, to become a grand magician who would lead the new era. His determination was clear, but his father responded coldly, dismissing the past year as wasted time. He urged Shin Hail to abandon his ideals and face reality, insisting that rejecting AI magic would forever prevent him from becoming a true magician. Still, his father acknowledged Shin Hail's raw talent. If he abandoned his outdated dreams and studied magic theory properly, he might still have a future, even as a misfit. But Shin Hail stood firm. He refused to give up on magic, nor would he accept a life built on family privilege. What he truly desired was to rise as the next head of the prestigious magician family, through his own strength. Challenged, his father demanded proof. Shin Hail vowed to rank in the top 10 of the upcoming verification test. If he failed, he'd leave the academy and follow the path his father expected. But if he succeeded, he wanted recognition and full support. His father listened in silence. Though still skeptical, he left with a final comment, hinting that Shin Hail's newfound confidence may yet prove hollow. Alone in the room, Shin Hail stood resolute. The next test would define his path and his worth. A few days later, the academy announced the format for the upcoming evaluation, a single elimination duel tournament. Students expressed surprise, and some disappointment, expecting monster-based trials instead. The test would span 3 days, beginning with 16 participants. From that round onward, spectators including business officials and members of the Magic Tower would attend. As the announcement ended, Shin Hail remained calm and focused. He clenched his fist with resolve. This was his chance. The moment to prove his strength had finally arrived. At the prestigious academy, news of a duel quickly spread. Whispers echoed in the halls. The Magic Tower would be watching, known as the most elite magician organization in the world. The tower's involvement meant everything. For many students, impressing them was the only way to secure a future in magic. In the middle of this attention stood Shin Hail, a quiet student labeled an AI misfit, often mocked by peers. One of the loudest voices was Baek Sayuk, a second-year student known for his arrogance. He cornered Shin Hail, taunting him about his defect, and reminding him of the upcoming midterm evaluations. Baek Sayuk, who had lost to Shin Hail 5 years ago in the Junior Magic Tournament Finals, now saw the exam as a chance for revenge. Baek Sayuk made his intention clear. He wanted to destroy Shin Hail's chances and see him expelled. His harassment intensified once he learned Shin Hail had fallen behind by the Academy's AI standards. Shin Hail, however, didn't respond with fear. Instead, he saw the challenge as a perfect opportunity. With the Magic Tower observing and Baek Sayuk as his first opponent, Shin Hail knew this was the moment to reclaim his reputation. Calm and prepared, he welcomed the confrontation, confident that this time, history would repeat, with him as the victor once more. Crowds gathered again as Baek Sayuk's loud taunts echoed through the hallway. Laughter followed as he mocked Shin Hail, labeling him defective and provoking him with public insults. Despite the ridicule, Shin Hail remained calm, watching his rival with steady eyes. Baek Sayuk's arrogance escalated, pushing Shin Hail's limits. But instead of reacting with emotion, Shin Hail struck back with composure, reminding Baek Sayuk of his defeat 5 years earlier. His words weren't just insults, they were facts. He questioned whether Baek Sayuk had grown at all since then. Baek Sayuk's pride cracked, and anger erupted. Attempting to reassert dominance, Baek Sayuk grabbed Shin Hail, calling him a disgrace. Yet Shin Hail countered with sharp resolve, stating that only someone who had once stood at the top could experience a fall. His voice carried not bitterness, but confidence. He made it clear that while others had forgotten his former glory, he hadn't. Baek Sayuk's rage only grew. Swearing vengeance, he threatened to destroy Shin Hyul entirely, but Shin Hyul remained composed, his smirk unfazed. The next day, news of Shin Hyul's return spread. Articles praised the comeback of a forgotten prodigy, once hailed as Korea's youngest spellcaster. Now all eyes turned to the midterm duel. Shin Hyul knew expectations were high. They weren't just awaiting a fight, they were awaiting the return of a legend. As the headlines spread about Shin Hyul's return, he quietly welcomed the attention. For him, public pressure was fuel. The more eyes that watched, the greater the impact of his comeback. Just then, his phone rang. It was his father. Their strained relationship resurfaced immediately. His father, head of the prestigious Shin family, questioned the media buzz. Shin Hyul assured him not to worry, but his father remained skeptical. He admitted to arranging Baek Sayuk's involvement to provoke attention, not out of faith in Shin Hyul. He clarified that supporting Shin Hyul had only been a calculated risk, not a vote of confidence. Shin Hyul responded firmly. He reminded his father that the public already believed he'd been cast out from the family. Even if he failed, no real loss would come to their name. But Shin Hyul saw something else. Potential. He believed the gamble was worth it. When asked what the family stood to gain, Shin Hyul answered simply, himself. He claimed he was the greatest magician the Shin Hyul family ever produced, destined to be its strongest leader. His father, impressed by Shin Hyul's conviction, allowed the plan to continue. Yet the warning was clear. Failure would bring consequences. As the call ended, Shin Hyul stood tall. Everything was now in motion. The stage was set. On the day of the midterm evaluation, the stadium was packed with spectators. All eyes turned toward Shin Hyul as he entered confidently, ignoring the mocking words of Baek Sayuk. Baek Sayuk tried to provoke him again, boasting about the humiliating article and predicting Shin's defeat. But Shin Hyul calmly thanked him, revealing that Baek Sayuk had unknowingly played into his plan. With confidence, he declared that Baek Sayuk might be the one to lose. Baek Sayuk's amusement faded as Shin Hyul showed no fear. He made it clear he had no interest in Baek Sayuk personally, just in finishing things quickly. As the match began, Shin Hyul lifted his hand and calmly declared the use of a one-circle spell, the weakest tier of magic. With a confident smirk, he vowed to win using only that single basic spell.
Spectators in the stands became interested by this challenge, and his opponent gritted his teeth and began to bite his nails in nervous anticipation as he silently wondered how it was possible for Shin Hyul to speak with such confidence. Soon after, the instructor entered the arena and positioned himself between the two opponents and raised his hand while announcing that the first round of the midterm exams for the second years was about to begin. He blew his whistle to signal the start, and Shin Hyul smiled confidently as his opponent put his hand forward while calling Shin Hyul a defective idiot and wishing him death. In that moment, Shin Hyul's eyes sparkled as streams of flame gushed out from the system window in front of him and merged into one large fireball that sped toward him. He easily dodged the fireball and wondered to himself if this was his opponent's signature ability known as explosion. The chip on the back of Shin Hyul's head sparked as he activated the third circle spell called Explosion once again, and his opponent smiled as if he were beginning to enjoy the fight. A powerful stream of flame hit the middle of the arena, and a roar was heard while voices and the clicking of cameras resonated from the stands. Confident in his impending victory, Shin Hyul smirked and said that he had no reason to pretend to be omnipotent. However, when the dust was finally blown away by the wind, his eyes widened in surprise as he saw that Shin Hyul remained unharmed. He began to grow nervous and swiftly summoned 3 system windows at once as he fired 3 fireballs at his opponent. At that moment, MC, with a look of confidence, created a water ball above his palm and then waved his hand upward from the bottom to raise a barrier above his head that protected him from the oncoming flames. Shin Hyul started to worry greatly as he thought that his favorite spell Explosion had been blocked so easily. While Shin Hyul was busy worrying and trying to salvage his reputation in the midst of the fight, the master of the Blue Magic Tower, known as the 8th Circle Magician Kim Ken-jin, was watching the contest from a special room. He became very interested in Shin Hyul and said with a puzzled expression that he could not understand how a mere first circle magician was able to use his magic so easily in a matter of seconds. A woman standing next to Kim Ken-jin then remarked that she was wondering why he would postpone his business at the Blue Tower simply to watch the second year's midterm exams, and asked if he knew anything about Shin Ha-yeol's magic. He replied that he did not know much, and that he had only seen an article about a kid who was being Shin Ha-yeoled as the return of a genius. Enoch had earlier mentioned that although the damage to the House of Magic might seem insignificant, it was not non-existent, and that no matter what Shin Ha-yeol did or where he went, the legacy of the house would always follow him. Shin Ha-yeol's face had grown serious at those words, and he had acknowledged that he knew of the damage, but dismissed those concerns as empty worries compared to the enormous benefits he would bring. When his father had then questioned him about the specific benefits for the House of Magic arising from his victory, Shin Ha-yeol had answered with unwavering confidence that the greatest benefit was embodied in his very self. Because the greatest mage in the world would emerge from the house, and the greatest head of the family in history was destined to be him even by the family's own exacting standards. Seated on a chair, his father had remarked that his ambitions were as high as those of the Tower Master, and that nothing should deter him from his path. Shin Ha-yeol had expressed his gratitude for these words of support. However, his father had then warned him sternly that if he continued to defame the family in his pursuit of personal glory, he should prepare himself for the inevitable consequences. After ending that difficult call, Shin Ha-yeol had set the phone on the table and sat on his bed while smiling softly as he declared that the bets were off. On the day of the midterm exams, the entire student body had gathered in a modest stadium where spectators and journalists took their places in the stands. Shin Ha-yeol strode out into the arena at the center of the stadium and stretched his wrist as he observed the bustling environment around him. In that moment, he recalled the heated exchange from the previous day, and he silently smiled to himself as he noted how the so-called genius had become the subject of a widely read article that had skyrocketed his popularity in a single day. With quiet laughter, he mused that even though his opponent could not even cast spells properly, he nevertheless persisted in embarrassing himself in front of everyone. Shin Ha-yeol then smiled in reply and confidently stated that he would be the only one who would end up embarrassed that day. He was slightly surprised by this retort. An MC, with his hand pressed firmly on his chest, expressed his thanks for having lured his opponent into the trap that had been set. He did not like Shin Ha-yeol at all and felt that this was the very least he could do. He intended to defeat him quickly so that Shin Ha-yeol would not have the chance to complain later. Soon after, Shin Ha-yeol let out a mocking chuckle and exclaimed that Shin Ha-yeol was truly crazy while extending his index finger, as he declared that the spells of the first circle would be enough to overcome him. The spectators became even more interested as they watched the confrontation intensify, and his opponent gritted his teeth and bit his nails in nervous agitation, while silently questioning how Shin Ha-yeol could speak so boldly. Later that day, as Shin Ha-yeol prepared for the duel and the eyes of the spectators and journalists were fixed upon him, he felt the weight of his destiny pressing upon him. He recalled his father's words and the promise he had made to himself that he would not allow his past humiliations or the scorn of his rivals to define his future. With every spell he had mastered and every drop of mana he had honed through relentless training, he was determined to show that true genius was forged in the crucible of adversity. As he stood in the arena, ready to face his opponent Shin Ha-yeol felt a surge of confidence, knowing that his mastery of even the first circle magic was more than enough to overcome the challenges before him. Thus, as the midterm duel commenced and flames and water clashed in a spectacular display of magical prowess, Shin Ha-yeol moved with precision and determination, while Shin Ha-yeol's anger and anxiety grew with every thwarted attack. The arena filled with the roars of the crowd and the clicks of cameras, while every observer witnessed a battle that was not merely a test of magical ability, but a contest of pride and honor. In that moment, Shin Ha-yeol silently vowed that his victory would not only silence the bitter insults of his rival, but would also confirm that the true benefit of the House of Magic was embodied in his own unmatched talent. Even as his father's stern warnings and the media's harsh words echoed in his mind, Shin Ha-yeol remained steadfast in his belief that the greatest mage would rise above the petty confines of tradition and that his own legend was just beginning to be written. And as the duel reached its climax and the sparks of magic lit up the arena, Shin Ha-yeol's unwavering resolve and skill shone brightly for all to see, while Shin Ha-yeol, overcome with nervousness and disbelief, realized too late that he had underestimated his opponent. In that defining moment, the destiny of the House of Magic was being rewritten by the hands of a true genius who refused to be bound by the past and who was determined to lead his family to unprecedented heights of glory and honor.
Hyul activated the core spell sequence. A dense vortex of wind formed, circling his body with force. As the mana synchronized perfectly, Hyul's eyes sharpened. He adjusted the flow, maximizing both speed and control. Concentrated wind condensed at his fingertips, evolving into a spear streamlined, enhanced, and embedded with ancient casting patterns. He launched the spear across the arena. It accelerated unnaturally, cutting through barriers and defying expected trajectories. The opposing mage panicked, scanning data screens. He couldn't understand the structure. It surpassed modern elemental classification theory. Hyul analyzed the prior casting delay. He smirked, calculating how to further increase the spell output. He bypassed standard limitations again, weaving a second and third spear simultaneously. Pressure building across the arena. Without pause, he summoned a fourth. The wind current intensified. 4 spears spun tightly around him. The opponent detected danger too late. Blue circuits formed underfoot as he hastily deployed a defensive barrier. The spears collided violently with the barrier. It flickered, trembled, then fractured under the overwhelming force delivered. The older mage smirked nervously. Realizing Hyul's power wasn't brute force, it was precision and adaptability. He lunged sideways to escape, reacting fast, but the incoming pressure suggested a miscalculation in spear angles. Eyes widened. One of the wind spears twisted midair, curving sharply toward his exposed flank. Hyul observed him closely, unfazed. He reminded his opponent that overthinking wouldn't stop the incoming strikes. With calm control, Hyul summoned more wind spears. Each hovered in formation, waiting for his silent command. Hyul launched more spears, guiding them smoothly. His opponent dashed aside, barely avoiding the circling wind force. Frustrated, the older mage cursed. He understood that staying close meant being trapped by Hyul's control radius. He sprinted toward the arena's edge, hoping distance would reduce Hyul's pressure and slow future strikes. From afar, he calculated Hyul's casting range. Less proximity might equal more time to counter incoming projectiles. Hyul watched quietly, acknowledging the tactic. He smiled faintly, impressed his opponent finally chose something reasonable. Hyul clasped his hands, stabilizing mana flow. The wind spears sharpened, condensing into a single formation. The spears accelerated it instantly, leaving a glowing trail as they surged toward the retreating mage's current position. Caught mid-step, the older mage turned in panic. He had misjudged the range and timing completely. A direct hit shattered his barrier. He screamed as force and wind blasted him into the wall. A silent observer watched from above. The outcome was clear. Hyul had decisively controlled the entire match. A blonde observer narrowed his eyes, closely analyzing the unusual merge pattern of the airborne wind spears. He questioned the logic. Wind shouldn't bend and synchronize like that. It defied common principles of elemental magic. Another man stepped forward, recognized by many. Calm and stern, he was addressed with great formality. He was Shin In-hyuk, head of the Maedoshin family, known for mastering 8-circle magic structures. A staff member confirmed his identity with surprise. Shin In-hyuk's presence meant the duel held deeper weight. The system analyzed the spell Reverse Cutter. Data showed speed, angle constraints, and limitations during redirection phase. Reverse Cutter could only target specific positions. If missed, its locked trajectory made reactivation impossible without reset. Analysts noted modern spells followed rigid rules like game functions, each spell coded with fixed inputs and behaviors. Strategic players used angles, buffs, and casting zones like game mechanics, relying on data-driven spell optimization. But Hyul's magic ignored preset logic. He used by-tenor-style casting freestyle manipulation beyond modern system constraints. The impact from Hyul's final strike cracked the arena floor, sending debris and energy in every direction. The older mage collapsed, breath unsteady. He questioned how he lost against what seemed like basic spells. Hyul stepped forward, calm and firm. He explained that misunderstanding spell rank led to false confidence and failure. Even a weak-looking spell, if precise and relentless, could end a fight before rank became relevant. The defeated mage struggled to process Hyul's logic. It challenged everything taught in modern structured magic theory. Hyul calmly activated a simple water spell. He held it up, stating its classification only first circle. He launched the spell directly. Though basic, its precision and placement targeted the opponent's vulnerable breathing path. The mage choked as the water wrapped around his face. Panic set in from sudden suffocation. Hyul clarified that fatal spells didn't require size or flash, only correct timing, angle, and intent mattered. He reminded everyone that Academy duels included protection spells. Without safety zones, real outcomes would be fatal. The water spell held firm. The mage struggled on the ground, helpless under a basic control technique. The stadium buzzed. Spectators murmured, recognizing the unexpected strength behind Hyul's simple yet devastatingly effective approach. Hyul stood calmly in the center, composed. His duel tactics contradicted every known standard combat model taught. With a slight breath, he addressed the referee, suggesting the outcome was already more than obvious. The instructor nodded, acknowledging the result. Hyul's performance had decisively surpassed all expectations set for the match. The match ended with thunderous cheers. The announcer officially declared Shin Hyul as the clear winner. Applause echoed throughout the stadium. Hyul's unexpected tactics had overwhelmed both his opponent and the audience. Quietly, Hyul walked toward the exit. His academy emblem glowed faintly on the back of his uniform. He clenched his fist slightly. A silent acknowledgement this kind of victory hadn't happened in a while. As he raised his arm, the crowd celebrated. Hyul stood alone, recalling the thrill of recognition. Hyul clenched his fist with conviction. After long rejection, he was finally acknowledged as a true mage. Dark fragments representing his past doubts faded. He silently let go of the pain he had carried. Elsewhere, instructors walked silently through the academy corridor, murmuring about the implications of the duel's outcome. A young observer watched from above. He noted Hyul's victory and muttered about a prodigy's return. With glowing eyes, he grinned slightly. Hyul's presence had stirred something deeper curiosity, and perhaps future conflict. Junho ran over, calling out excitedly. He had watched the match and couldn't hide his amazement. He grabbed Hyul's shoulders, asking how he trained. Junho's enthusiasm overflowed with curiosity and admiration. Junho gestured animatedly, describing how the wind spears curved and combined midair with perfect control. Hyul tilted his head and smirked slightly, teasing Junho with a question. "Do you really want details?" Without hesitation, Junho shouted yes. His wide grin showed genuine excitement, eager to hear everything Hyul had learned. Hyul smirked, closing the ancient grimoire. He gave no explanation. His true technique would remain hidden. Hyul and Junho looked at the screen. News about the duel had already spread academy-wide overnight. The headline highlighted the prodigy's return. Hyul read calmly, unfazed by the sudden wave of attention. As students gathered, they discussed his magic. Many questioned how his spells moved unpredictably mid-air. Hyul overheard them and smiled slightly. He knew the answer but chose not to explain everything. Before he could respond, an official entered. "I'll answer that question for you," the man said. Hyul sensed a presence and turned. A man approached confidently, surrounded by murmurs and curious eyes. It was Kim Kangen, Lord of Blue Tower. He praised Hyul's match and showed direct interest. Standing beside Hyul, Kangen claimed the match technique resembled an advanced spell, the 8-circle incantation, Memorize. The crowd whispered as Kangen demonstrated a glowing flame. His example spell drew instant attention from everyone. Spectators reacted with awe. The visual display confirmed Kangen's theory, and tension filled the room quietly. Kangen explained that Memorize lets mages store a spell in advance and recast it instantly later. He emphasized that instant casting is powerful, but the spell comes with specific limitations by design. Memorize can only store spells 3 circles below the caster's level, restricting its usefulness under certain conditions. Hyul nodded slightly, confirming the theory. Kangen used the explanation to transition toward by-tenor-style spellcraft principles. A spectator realized the implication. Hyul must be capable of at least 4-circle magic to use it. Kangen proudly confirmed Hyul's magical tier. With laughter, he vouched for the student's exceptional casting capability. The crowd erupted in cheers. Word spread fast. Hyul had surpassed typical academy limits for his age. Reporters called it a scoop. Reaching 4-circle magic so young rivaled achievements of historical tower lords. Hyul's calm demeanor contrasted the uproar. Spectators watched in awe as his wind magic surged effortlessly again. Junho leaned in and whispered curiously, "Are you really a 4-circle mage?" Hyul just smiled slightly. Junho and Kangen pointed out specific spell behavior. They both wanted to understand how Hyul achieved it. Kangen stepped back, smiling confidently. He offered to explain, eager to clarify what everyone had witnessed. Before Kangen continued, Hyul interrupted. He said mastering unconventional casting was simple if rules were intentionally broken. Hyul casually stated he had modified the spell formula. Everyone listening paused, unsure how to react. Kangen's eyes widened. The idea of altering a base spell structure was nearly unthinkable in modern theory. As Hyul demonstrated his flight spell, Kangin quietly reflected on Hyul's strength despite magical system incompatibility. Kangin admitted Hyul's potential could have been limitless if he had matched modern magic system compatibility standards. Hyul raised a glowing butterfly-shaped construct, naming his approach Modification Magic, inspired by his altered casting formula. Spectators watched as blue butterflies burst from his mana, signaling a completely new path in spellcraft. In the shadows, another observer smirked. Hyul's rise had clearly begun to draw serious attention. Hyul released the butterflies. His new path modification magic was now known across the Academy's growing audience. The magical community felt a ripple. From this moment, spellcasting rules would no longer stay unchanged. Junho read the news headline in disbelief. Modification magic? He struggled to believe what he witnessed. Hyul confirmed it casually. They joked for a moment before Junho congratulated him again on the win. As they parted ways, Hyul nodded slightly. He returned to his dorm, calm after a defining day. Junho waved as he left the room. He said tomorrow's opponent would be unusually difficult to face. Hyul tilted his head slightly. The phrase tough opponent lingered in his mind with quiet curiosity. A new day arrived. The wind stirred above Obelisk Stadium as students filled the stands again. Seats were packed. Everyone waited, sensing today's battle would carry significance beyond just a training match. Junho stood inside the arena, focused. His gaze burned with intent, ready for whatever came next. Junho knelt, catching his breath. He had just lost, and his opponent stood confidently before him. Watching from above, Hyul realized the tough opponent Junho mentioned was not a man but her. She stepped forward with grace, golden hair flowing. Her mana already began forming behind her stance. Her name, Adela Starrett. She commanded refined control and power from both European and Korean mystic legacies. She raised her hand, magic surging. Her expression was calm, but her aura demanded absolute respect immediately. Hyul analyzed quietly. He noticed Adela's spells had unusual structure, something fundamentally different from most advanced casters. Her casting drew from a rare source, the moon element, hidden within the House of Mystics. A glowing circle expanded below her. Its markings pulsed gently, amplifying her control and magical precision. She released the energy. It surged forward at high speed, impossible to intercept with basic defense. The impact struck directly. Junho tumbled backward across the arena floor, unable to resist the force. The referee raised their hand. With an official call, the match was declared over without objection. Adela stood tall. Her victory confirmed. Her calm confidence contrasted with the overwhelming power just displayed. From the stands, Hyul observed silently. He took special interest in the nature of her techniques. Her moonlight magic, a blend of light and shadow, remained undocumented within public magical system frameworks. The House of Mystics kept it hidden. Range, power, structure, none were known beyond the original lineage. Hyul sat back, analyzing quietly. Watching Adela's magic firsthand, he admitted facing her wouldn't be easy. Adela turned slightly, scanning the crowd. Her eyes met his briefly with unreadable intent and calm. Hyul straightened up, surprised. He wondered if her glance held meaning, or if it was coincidence. He questioned silently, unsure if she had truly noticed him or simply scanned the arena aimlessly. Meanwhile, Junho returned defeated. Hyul offered him a simple good job. Junho grumbled, drained but still smiling. Junho complained playfully about his unlucky matchup. Hyul remained quiet, still thinking about Adela's performance earlier. Junho asked if Hyul had won his second duel. Hyul confirmed casually with a confident smile. Realizing the bracket's path, Junho trailed off. They both understood what the next round would mean. Adela approached them directly, calm and polite. She complimented Hyul on his recent match without hesitation. Junho scratched his head, flustered by the praise. Meanwhile, Hyul noticed something in Adela's focused expression. Hyul tilted his head slightly. Adela had addressed him directly with unexpected familiarity and seriousness. She referred to him by name, linking his return to a mage's original path, pure and focused. With a steady gaze, she revealed her reason for enrolling, to witness that path in action. Hyul spotted unfamiliar figures approaching the hallway, their purposeful steps hinting at something more than coincidence. Among them, a girl moved ahead confidently. Her presence radiated power, drawing everyone's attention without speaking. She had researched Hyul's sudden return to magic, intrigued by how he defied expectations and odds. Motivated by hidden reasons, she joined the academy seeking strength, answers, and someone capable of guiding her path. A family crest manifested behind her. She revealed her lineage Hadosh, known for devastating fire magic and ancient secrets. Adela and Shin Hyul once stood as equals, two top students destined to challenge each other constantly. Adela abandoned her prestigious education overseas, transferring to Obelisk Academy, only to surpass Hyul's growing reputation. But after Hyul was officially labeled as AI incompatible, everything between them came to a sudden halt. They never exchanged a single word again. The designation broke contact, purpose, and their competitive bond. And to Adela, his label ended the rivalry. To Hyul, it proved he was still incomplete. Adela turned sharply, declaring her challenge. She made it clear things would be settled through combat. As Hyul prepared backstage, a classmate questioned his focus. The duel's meaning hadn't sunk in yet. His friend grew frustrated, shouting that Hyul's opponent wasn't just anyone. It was Adela, the Academy's strongest. Adela stepped into the arena surrounded by magical energy. Her presence alone stirred awe and tension. Seeing her again, fully determined, Hyul froze. His mind raced. He hadn't expected this confrontation so soon. As dawn broke, the dueling arena filled with anticipation. The upcoming match drew spectators from across campus. The next day, students gathered early. They buzzed with excitement, waiting to see Adela and Hyul clash. Adela stood calmly inside the ring. Her silence reflected focus, but her eyes searched for her opponent. Spectators whispered doubts. Some mocked Hyul, wondering if fear made him flee from someone clearly outmatched. They scoffed at his claims of modified magic, dismissing it as baseless theory with no real strength. As the final seconds passed, the judge glanced at the clock. Shin Hyul was still missing. According to the Academy's duel regulations, with no opponent present, Adela Starrett would win by default. Suddenly, Hyul shouted from the corridor. Breathing hard, he ran toward the stage without hesitation or pause. He reached the platform, smiled confidently, and calmly said, "Sorry for being late." The judge, surprised and frustrated, yelled Hyul's name, demanding an explanation for his last-minute entrance. The judge confirmed the match. Adela warned Hyul that no recovery time would be granted today. She insisted it was his penalty for arriving late. Hyul silently nodded and took his position. Adela raised a question before the duel began, calmly asking why he arrived at the arena late. Hyul hesitated, then gave a vague answer with a slight grin. "Nothing major," he replied casually. Blue energy spiraled around him. "Just some preparations," he added, revealing power that stunned those watching nearby. The referee signaled the start. Adela stepped forward without hesitation, ready to test Hyul's so-called improvement. Hyul admitted she was strong. He explained that's why he took time to prepare for this battle. He smiled confidently, acknowledging this match wouldn't be easy, but it would definitely be worth the challenge. Adela observed his energy. She noticed something had changed. This wasn't the same Hyul from yesterday. She wondered silently, was this the moment she'd finally witness Hyul's full strength unleashed without holding back? Hyul steadied his stance, channeling magical energy into his hands as the arena crowd watched silently. The match officially began. Hyul warned that Adela would need to fight seriously from the first moment. A massive cheer erupted. Without hesitation, Adela responded to the challenge with aggressive magical force and precision. She activated one of her signature spells. Her eyes narrowed as she called out, "Flame Revolver!" Concentrated fire magic surged in her palm. Adela prepared to unleash it directly toward Hyul's position. Adela launched multiple flaming orbs across the arena. The blasts raced forward in synchronized, targeted formations. Hyul raised his arm, calling out his next spell without hesitation. He chose to counter directly. With one word, wind. He summoned a sweeping gust strong enough to challenge the incoming fireball's path. The flames exploded midair, redirected by Hyul's wind magic. The audience gasped at his precise control. Adela didn't stop. Slamming her fist down, she invoked another spell, this time with sharp, piercing impact. Adela's earth needle cracked the arena floor, releasing sharp energy spikes that surged directly toward Hyul's position. The ground split with force. A glowing line of magic chased forward, aiming to strike decisively. Reacting instantly, Hyul launched himself into the air, avoiding the direct hit by shifting his stance midair. Adela quickly calculated his trajectory. With him airborne, she believed he had no room to dodge again. Focusing her gaze, Adela moved to attack, convinced she could strike him before he landed safely. Adela cast arrow impact from above, closing in on Hyul's airborne position with crushing magical force. Hyul recognized the tactic, striking midair when mobility is lowest, a basic but effective aerial assault method. He admitted most would be unable to escape. Knowing it's coming doesn't guarantee avoiding the outcome. But Hyul wasn't like most. Calmly, he countered her spell with perfect timing, shouting out barrier. The magical shield activated mid-air, stunning the crowd. Their eyes widened, amazed by his unexpected defense strategy. Adela looked up, startled. She realized Hyul had done something unusual right in the middle of battle. Hyul flipped the barrier spell beneath his feet, converting it into a solid mid-air foothold instantly. He redirected his descent with perfect control. Adela recognized his magic style rare, precise, and incredibly adaptive. Hyul's unique magic sense hadn't faded. It was still sharp, and she'd need full strength now. To challenge his evolving power, Adela knew she must tap into every skill at her disposal. Hyul raised his hand high, declaring his resolve he would even harness sunlight itself to win. Hyul understood Adela's flame relied on moon-aligned elemental power. To counter it, he needed something stronger. He decided to respond with everything he had. No more holding back or reserve strategy today. Channeling his energy upward, Hyul summoned solar magic. He would draw power directly from the sun. As he invoked solar force, a shockwave knocked Adela back. She wasn't expecting this scale of power. Shielding her eyes, Adela stared upward, alarmed. She realized instantly Hyul was using the sunlight against her flames. As sunlight converged on Hyul's platform, Adela realized the threat and braced herself to defend immediately. With no time to counterattack, she knew she had to shield against the coming solar burst. The battle escalated. Adela cast a strong defense spell to repel Hyul's rapidly intensifying magical pressure. Meanwhile, Hyul invoked enro again, launching himself forward while directing focus currents to amplify his momentum. He sliced through the air, spiraling toward Adela. His movement created shockwaves that echoed across the arena. Hyul kept his focus sharp. He noticed Adela's defensive posture, using low-tier spells to test responses. She relied on enro, a basic barrier spell, confirming she planned to measure rather than rush. Hyul shifted positions mid-air, landing smoothly with magical energy pulsing around him, preparing for the next exchange. Adela saw her chance. Confident and alert, she raised her hand, ready to counter with force, but just as she prepared to strike, Hyul's sudden movement disrupted her plan and caught attention. The moment their eyes locked, tension rose. Hyul's calm intensity contrasted Adela's quickly growing concern. Before she reacted, she sensed magic from below. Hyul had cast Earthbind without chanting a word. She was shocked. He activated the spell the moment his foot touched the arena floor. Adela's thoughts raced. She struggled to follow his pace. His precision and reaction time were beyond expectation. Hyul was already repositioning again, moving faster than her vision could clearly track. The pressure mounted. Hyul rotated his stance and summoned another element. This time, it was a high-speed water spell. Calling out Water Missile, he shaped the liquid energy into sharp projectiles charged with intense magical force. Adela responded immediately, activating her flame magic. She braced to counter the incoming water-based assault. Hyul launched multiple missiles upward, using their arcs to restrict movement rather than attack directly. He repositioned fluidly while his spells rained down. The stage turned into a precise elemental chessboard. Adela reacted quickly, casting a barrier to shield herself as Hyul's water missiles rained from above. The wave of magic dispersed, crashing against her shield. She blocked the attack but felt pressured. Despite his improvement, Adela believed Hyul was still manageable. She felt confident holding her defensive position. A student outside the arena speculated that Hyul had used the fourth circle spell known as Memorize. Memorize allowed instant activation of lower-level spells, but only those within the third circle or below. Adela smirked, unconcerned. In her mind, a first circle spell wasn't enough to challenge her defenses. Suddenly, something shimmered in the sky. A faint magical trace began falling with quiet but sharp intent. The projectile struck fast in unexpected magical force. Adela couldn't locate the moment Hyul had cast it. Shocked, she questioned how he launched such an accurate hit without revealing any prior movement or buildup. Then it clicked. Hyul had modified a wind spear and hidden it among his previous spell pattern. Adela suddenly realized was the true setup hidden in the sunlight above her this entire time. Before she could fully react, she was hit, stumbling from Hyul's precisely timed counterattack. Hyul stepped forward calmly, magical energy still flowing. He reminded her not to underestimate who she faced. Looking down at her, Hyul warned again this duel wasn't over, and he wouldn't hold back. Adela pushed herself up, determined. Gritting her teeth, she whispered her own name as a declaration. From the viewing room, instructors noted Hyul's sharp instincts. His tactics were far beyond normal student capability. An observer explained everything began with Hyul evading Earth Needle, From that moment, his plan activated. He flipped the barrier for positioning, then launched downward, using sunlight to conceal his movement entirely. By controlling shadows and light, Hyul effectively blocked Adela's line of sight for several crucial seconds. In that window, he used Memorize to silently prepare a delayed wind spear for counterattack execution. An instructor explained how Hyul used arrow mid-descent, intentionally pulling Adela's full attention toward himself. His movement suggested a setup for close combat, masking the true purpose behind his earthbind. At the precise moment sunlight aligned behind him, he moved into position to execute the strike. With perfect timing, Hyul released the delayed wind spear, catching Adela off guard with silent precision. A calm observer in the audience smiled, remarking that Hyul moved like a true grand mage. One observer acknowledged Hyul's ingenuity, but dismissed it as limited at the core. Still basic magic. He gestured toward the arena, inviting others to observe what real difference higher circle spells could make. Despite Hyul's smart setup, both duelists remained standing. The battlefield bore no signs of decisive advantage. Adela and Hyul faced each other again. Neither showed fear, but tension quietly rose between them. From the audience, a voice noted Hyul's flaw. Even with perfect setup, he couldn't finish the match. A spectator analyzed the battle closely, realizing Hyul had reached his current limit with no finishing move. He concluded confidently Hyul couldn't end this match on his own, without higher-tier magic or disruption. Meanwhile, Hyul silently acknowledged that Adela still hadn't revealed her final and most dangerous magical technique. Adela calmly stepped forward, praising Hyul's performance. His efforts reminded her of a past formidable mage. Her tone sharpened. With glowing energy, she declared her intent to fight using her full strength. Hyul exhaled sharply. At last, the moment had come. Adela was unleashing her true strength. Magical energy surged around her. She entered a new state, channeling the full power within her bloodline. Hyul recognized the spell instantly. It was the ultimate form of moon-aligned magic, powerful and deeply ancient. Adela began casting the secret technique passed down in her family, the House of Mystics, hidden magic. Adela stood tall and confident, complimenting Hyul. His progress reminded her of a long-past rival. With firm resolve, she declared she would no longer hold back, she would fight at full strength. Hyul responded with equal determination, preparing his stance once more as his magical energy flared outward. A mysterious aura enveloped Adela again. Her signature magic surged upward, preparing to enter its final form. Hyul's expression hardened. He braced himself, knowing what was coming. Adela's overwhelming moon attribute spell was activating. Adela rose into the air, channeling her clan's most powerful technique, the ultimate mystic secret spell. The spell's name echoed through the arena, Halo. A legendary moon attribute magic passed through generations. Massive runes formed above her. Hyul moved cautiously, trying to read the spell's direction and purpose. Energy surged across the floor. The spell activated with explosive light, shaking the arena with overwhelming force. Instructors watched silently, tense. The magic unfolding now was rare, dangerous, and nearly impossible to counter directly. One official noticed another preparing to leave and asked if he was walking out already. Without hesitation, the man replied that the battle's outcome was already decided, there was nothing more to see. He calmly walked away, unconcerned, convinced the match had reached a point of no return. Another instructor gasped in shock, noticing something unusual happening just as the others were turning away. A smirking observer offered no explanation, he simply uttered, "That's..." while watching with quiet, knowing confidence. A spectator cried out in shock as the energy on the battlefield shifted rapidly and unexpectedly. Adela turned wide-eyed, struggling to understand what she was sensing. The magical signature felt completely unfamiliar. Hyul stood engulfed in blazing fire. Symbols rotated behind him as a powerful incantation took form. With a surge of force, he cast Flame Vulcan Raw, aggressive fire magic exploding from his core. Adela narrowed her eyes. It was only second circle magic, yet the output far exceeded normal expectations. Adela questioned the spell again. It looked basic, but released far more energy than expected from Hyul. Hyul laughed confidently, reminding her he had warned her his delay was preparation specifically to defeat her. Adela analyzed carefully. She remembered that Memorize could only preload and activate spells of the third circle. Her expression shifted. She asked directly, was it possible that Hyul had reached the fifth circle already? Hyul didn't deny it. His smile said enough, this was no longer a battle of equals. That night, at Obelisk Academy's dormitory, Hyul sat quietly, reflecting on the battle's unfolding events. He stared at the old spellbook, arms crossed, thinking deeply about the difference in their magical power. Hyul admitted to himself Adela couldn't be beaten with first circle spells alone, not in a real fight. He considered the book before him. His combat instincts weren't designed for deceptive, hidden techniques. Still, with a quiet sigh, he opened the tome again, committing to adapt and go further. Hyul studied the latest page in Idrid's tome, recognizing it contained something completely different and advanced. He read aloud, "Channel power into the next page's magic circle to unlock the path ahead." A glowing diagram emerged beneath his fingertips. The message promised it would lead to a new realm. Hyul stared at the pattern, wondering if it was a gate, trigger, or something even deeper. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and declared, "I will try, choosing to move forward boldly." Hyul placed his hand firmly on the page. Magic flared as energy pulsed from the book. Startled, he drew back slightly as the ancient symbol reacted instantly to his touch and aura. The glowing intensified. Hyul shielded his eyes and shouted it wasn't stopping, only getting stronger and brighter. Energy exploded upward, filling the room with light. Symbols swirled, drawing in every drop of mana. The book hovered midair, glowing and humming. Something within had been awakened, waiting only for Hyul's will. Hyul blinked as light overwhelmed him. His surroundings changed. An unfamiliar air filled his lungs. He opened his eyes inside a glowing room lined with bookshelves and golden magic flowing everywhere. Looking around in confusion, Hyul asked aloud where had he arrived, and what was this place? And then, in a voice answered from above, "Welcome to the page of the first trial." A floating figure introduced herself as Alpha, the guide assigned to oversee the first page's trial. Hyul repeated Alpha's words, confused. Was this really the beginning of the first trial's page? Alpha confirmed it clearly. This was the official first trial, fully contained within the magic of Idred's book. Hyul was stunned. This space wasn't a distant world, but somehow existed inside the tome itself. He examined the surroundings, realizing this wasn't an illusion. It was a real place hidden in pages. Still processing the truth, Hyul whispered to himself in disbelief. Unbelievable. As the room shimmered around him. Alpha, the guide, prepares Hyul for the first trial meant to assess his mastery over Sime. This trial determines whether Hyul's understanding of the fundamental technique is complete or still lacking precision. If successful, new sections in the book will unlock, granting access to advanced second circle magic knowledge. Hyul understands the structure clearly. Passing this challenge is essential for advancing to the next magical threshold. The system is formalized. Alpha waits silently as the magical process prepares to initiate the first trial. Fully resolved, Hyul accepted the challenge. He understood this trial would determine his future magical capabilities. Alpha activated the trial protocol, summoning the surrounding energy that would shape the conditions of the challenge. As magic engulfed the room, Alpha announced the trial's beginning. Hyul stood ready for whatever came next. Hyul raised his arm with determination, declaring he was ready to accept the first difficult challenge. As shimmering lights whirled around him, Hyul took a deep breath, steadying his heart and mind. He closed his eyes, feeling the ancient power gathering, prepared to test his strength and spirit completely. Floating gently, the ethereal figure watched Hyul closely. Surprised, he was neither frightened nor hesitant now. Glowing brighter, the entity announced the trial's rules, determined to reveal Hyul's true hidden magical potential. Hyul stared upward, realizing this was the trial's true form that would test his entire resolve. A radiant gem materialized slowly, its swirling light signaling a power far beyond ordinary magical comprehension itself. The voice explained the gem's name was Elemental Manalite, an incredibly rare and powerful crystal. Hyul listened carefully, understanding his task was to purify this gem without making a single error. He clenched his hands tighter, preparing to manipulate mana precisely and complete the impossible purification alone. Hyul realized the gem contained 4 types of mana, swirling together in absolute chaotic disorder. He felt overwhelmed, comparing it to separating mixed grains perfectly without making any mistakes at all. Pacing slowly, Hyul knew only an expert archmage could complete such a precise and impossible task. But instead of fear, determination grew inside him, believing this trial would finally prove his worth. With steady eyes, Hyul reached for the gem, ready to start the delicate purification process immediately. Inside the gem, countless colors churned wildly, each representing a separate force that resisted his control. Hyul narrowed his eyes, watching the streams of mana twist together in dangerous, unpredictable, shifting patterns. He extended both hands, slowly channeling his own mana to steady the swirling energy around him. Sweat formed on his brow as he commanded himself to focus completely without any single distraction. Gradually, the violent colors began separating, and Hyul felt the gem respond to his precise effort. The gem's backlash exploded, throwing Hyul backward across the room with a force he barely contained. Breathing heavily, he realized the mana inside felt alive, shifting constantly to resist any separation attempts. Hyul studied the swirling gem carefully, understanding that brute force alone would never untangle such dense mana. Determined, he clenched his fist, confident he'd discovered a better way to divide the chaotic energy. With renewed resolve, Hyul charged again, willing to repeat this process until the gem was purified. Hyul struggled to steady his breath, knowing even one mistake would erase all his progress instantly. Again and again, he was forced to restart, each attempt demanding more focus than the last. At last, he shouted with relief, realizing he had fully purified the elemental mana light gem. A voice echoed, congratulating him for completing the trial and proving himself worthy of the ancient power. The light proclaimed Hyul a successor, ready to receive the second ring and continue the path. Hyul awoke on his bed, exhausted but alive, after enduring the gem's impossible purification trial. Blinking slowly, he sat up and whispered to himself, surprised he had returned home safely, and beside him, the ancient grimoire stirred, golden letters swirling across its pages like living flames. Smiling with relief, Hyul knew the book now revealed secrets he had earned through determination. With steady hands, he prepared to learn the method required to weave the powerful second ring. Hyul traced the glowing text, determined to master the second ring before the next challenge began. Far away, clouds drifted peacefully over the academy, unaware of the turmoil soon approaching their gates. Inside the grand arena, a powerful sorceress unleashed her magic, surrounding herself with shimmering protective barriers. Instantly, the floor cracked under the pressure of her spell, energy surging and splitting the stone apart violently. With unwavering focus, she prepared to counterattack, ready to prove her strength against any approaching threat. Energy pulsed around the arena as the sorceress tightened her spell, determined to end the fight. Clenching his fist, the spectator cursed under his breath, convinced Hyul would soon be completely defeated. With a confident smile, she lowered her hand, believing the match was already finished without doubt. Watching closely, she wondered how Hyul had advanced so far, hiding such power behind his calm. Hyul stood smiling on the stage, his presence hinting he still had more secrets to reveal. The sorceress lowered her arms slowly, sensing a strange vibration rippling through the entire glowing barrier. Her eyes widened in alarm as an eerie hum grew louder, echoing across the silent arena. A dark voice announced the second circle's resonance activation, signaling a power no one had expected. Hyul's gaze turned sharp and unyielding, his red eyes gleaming as energy gathered in both hands. Surrounded by blazing symbols, Hyul prepared to unleash dangerous magic, determined to end the fight decisively. Dark energy exploded outward, forming giant spectral hands that hovered over Hyul's circle of intricate runes. Standing firmly, Hyul extended his arms, channeling the power as his voice echoed with authority. His crimson eyes locked forward, he commanded the spell to bind itself with unbreakable will and purpose. Spectators gasped in shock, realizing they were witnessing forbidden magic no student was supposed to ever learn. Panic spread instantly as some screamed, unable to comprehend the overwhelming force surging through the arena. She stumbled backward, clutching her chest as fear surged, unsure what power Hyul had unleashed now. Before her, enormous spectral hands spread wide, pulsing with energy that threatened to crush everything nearby. Hyul's eyes glowed fiercely as he commanded the spell, summoning a raging flame that answered instantly. Realizing the danger, she shouted to activate her defense magic, hoping it would shield her in time. The entire arena shook as resonance I fully activated, pouring unstoppable force toward his trembling opponent. Her eyes widened in disbelief, realizing Hyul's unleashed force was far beyond anything she could counter now. Raising her staff, she tried desperately to block the attack, feeling her strength slipping away quickly. A calm smile crossed her lips as she accepted the truth of his return without any doubt. She whispered softly, asking him to once again become her rival and drive her ambitions forward. From the stands, a spectator gasped in shock, unable to comprehend the scene unfolding before everyone's eyes. Hyul stepped forward calmly, his presence radiating strength that silenced the entire arena in an instant. Spectators exchanged uneasy glances, realizing no one had ever witnessed magic this precise or overwhelming before today. His opponent charged again, refusing to surrender despite the clear difference in their power and experience. With a single motion, Hyul's force sent her crashing backward, shattering the tiles beneath her completely. Breathing heavily, Hyul dropped to one knee, exhausted but victorious after the most difficult duel yet. The announcer's voice trembled as he declared the match over, unable to hide his own disbelief. Cheers erupted across the arena while the victor's name echoed loudly. Shin Hyul had won decisively today. As the audience settled, Hyul turned quietly, preparing to leave before anyone could question his intentions. Someone called out, asking if he was departing already, curiosity mixing with respect in their steady voice. Without turning, Hyul replied he had other appointments, leaving only silence and wonder behind in his wake. And Hyul flashed a tired grin, knowing everyone could see he had no real appointments waiting. The crowded hall erupted in murmurs as students watched him with curiosity, respect, and a little fear. He exhaled deeply, wiping sweat from his brow, finally admitting to himself he was completely exhausted. His mind drifted, recalling how the second infinite circle could synchronize perfectly with heart's intense circulation. By adjusting dark element output, he learned to combine moon attribute magic into a dangerous hybrid spell. Hyul realized he could narrow the attack's range, making each strike precise instead of widespread destruction. He combined dark magic enhancements with moon magic, countering Halo's defenses using a calculated layered assault method. Moon magic remained a closely guarded secret, passed only within the House of Moon's ancient lineage. Yet by studying its structure briefly, Hyul managed delicate mana manipulation that few dared attempt before. With sharp insight he discerned moon magic's core and used it to fuel his resonance circle. Hyul walked calmly through the academy hall, feeling everyone's curious eyes fixed firmly on his back. From across the room, a man adjusted his glasses, watching Hyul with a thoughtful, serious expression. He stepped forward purposefully, his polished shoes echoing against the floor as the crowd moved aside respectfully. Stopping a few paces away, he raised his voice clearly so Hyul could hear him easily. Hyul turned slowly, surprised to see the man calling his name with such unexpected familiarity and warmth. A student shouted nervously, announcing the man's title as Master of the Mage Tower to everyone. Smiling confidently, the master declared he had come personally to speak directly with Hyul about everything. Hyul's heart pounded as he realized the Mage Tower's master had come to see him directly. With a calm smile, the master announced he had something very important to discuss with Hyul. Soon after, they sat together in a quiet room overlooking the academy's training grounds in silence. The master apologized politely for arriving without notice, then praised Hyul's impressive performance during the fierce duel. Hyul lowered his gaze respectfully and thanked the master for acknowledging his effort in that battle. The master adjusted his glasses carefully, preparing to ask Hyul a question no one dared voice. He spoke evenly, wanting the truth. Had Hyul already reached the level of the fifth circle? Hyul sat in silence, considering how much he should reveal about his strength and hidden skills. He remembered he'd only used second circle magic in battle, never showing his full potential openly. It was logical others believed he was stronger, since such techniques usually belong to higher-ranked mages. Hyul laughed awkwardly and admitted honestly that he hadn't yet reached the fifth circle of magic. The master nodded thoughtfully, then pressed further, asking how Hyul performed second circle spells without advanced rank. Hyul hesitated, wondering if saying he used vision magic would sound unbelievable to the master's ears. Curious, the master questioned if it was transformation magic, searching Hyul's expression for any hint of truth. He recalled Hyul mentioning transformation during earlier interviews, hoping this time he would finally share everything openly. Hyul agreed quickly, saying it was transformation magic, though he knew it wasn't the full truth. Inside, he decided this explanation was enough, since revealing everything would bring unnecessary attention and suspicion. He reminded himself that reaching fifth circle so young would spark headlines and chaos in the world. Sitting across from the master, Hyul resolved to keep his real abilities hidden for as long necessary. Trying to appear casual, Hyul admitted he had improved memory magic, avoiding the deeper explanation for now. The master's eyes widened with excitement as he repeated Hyul's words about improving memory-based magic techniques. Hyul nodded calmly, watching the older man pace thoughtfully, clearly impressed by the simplicity of his explanation. The master tapped his chin, acknowledging that modifying memorize was certainly an unusual but effective approach to magic. He leaned forward, smiling with genuine curiosity, wanting to understand exactly how Hyul refined such complex spells. Praising him, the master admitted he never imagined anyone could improve memorize's weaknesses so thoroughly and easily. Hyul lifted his gaze cautiously, sensing something had shifted when the master locked eyes with him directly. Red light flickered in the master's pupils, mirroring Hyul's eyes with an intensity that felt unsettling. A sudden pressure filled the room as their eyes met, energy crackling between them without warning. Hyul straightened his back, refusing to look away even as the air seemed to vibrate dangerously. Silence fell, broken only by their racing heartbeats as they stared each other down without blinking. The master's expression softened as he finally reached a conclusion he seemed comfortable sharing with everyone present. He confirmed that Hyul showed no monolines or other signs typical of a fifth circle mage. Turning slightly, he acknowledged Hyul's earlier statement, admitting it was likely honest and free of deception. With a polite smile, the master announced he would stand up and address the gathered reporters personally. His eyes glimmered thoughtfully, ready to deliver an explanation that would settle all remaining suspicions immediately. Hyul exhaled slowly, bowing politely as he thanked the master for coming and offering his guidance. He turned away, shoulders heavy with relief as the door closed quietly behind the older man. Standing alone, Hyul wiped sweat from his brow, feeling the tension finally drain from his body. He reflected on how unexpected it was to face the master's piercing red jade's magic eyes. Those legendary eyes had seen through countless lies, leaving Hyul more cautious than ever about secrets. Legends claimed Kim Kangan's magic eyes could pierce any disguise, exposing the deepest currents of mana. Hyul sighed nervously, amazed he hadn't been caught hiding his true power from such a master. He reminded himself the Baitaneo-style magic was his greatest secret, never to be shared lightly. Outside, the arena echoed with cheers as the match officially ended under a bright, cloudless sky. An announcer's voice rang out, declaring Shin Hyul the winner, sealing his reputation in everyone's eyes. Hyul turned sharply, sensing someone approaching behind him as energy slowly settled around his tense shoulders again. A clear voice called for him to wait, halting his steps before he could leave quietly. He glanced back over his shoulder, surprised to recognize Adela standing there with a steady gaze. Adela remarked she expected him unconscious longer, impressed he'd recovered so quickly after such a fight. Hyul nodded once and asked calmly what was happening now, ready to hear her explanation directly. Adela looked thoughtful, explaining the finals were approaching but offering to wait if he needed rest. Hyul shook his head firmly, insisting they should handle everything now while memories were still clear. He added that feedback would help refine his skills, asking her to lead him to preparation. Walking behind him, Adela admired his determination, realizing how much she could still learn by observing. In her heart, she promised that someday she would stand confidently at his level as well. Sunlight glinted off the towering building, where the Mage Tower held its most important meetings and announcements. Inside the grand hall, dozens gathered, waiting anxiously to hear statements about the duel and results. A reporter stepped forward, microphone raised, calling Shin Hyul's name as he prepared to answer questions. The sun rose over the towering Shin Group headquarters, casting strong light across the mirrored windows. Inside, the grand emblem of the Shin Group pulsed with hidden power, vibrating through the silent halls. In the spacious chamber, tension hung heavy as important decisions waited to be made by everyone. Clenching his fist, Hyul cursed under his breath, anger burning at his inability to change anything. Smiling faintly, she stepped closer, voice low, confessing she believed everything had already been completely lost. Shin-Se-Ah clenched her fist tightly, anger building as she thought about the looming threat. Shin-Jihan watched her carefully, voice calm, trying to keep the situation from becoming completely unmanageable again. He asked quietly what options remained if Hyul returned, bringing chaos and questions back to everyone. Se-Ah turned sharply, reminding Jihan of everything that happened when Hyul left the family years ago. Jihan lifted his hand confidently, assuring Se-Ah they could survive whatever might come at them. Jihan pointed to the screen, reminding Se-Ah that Hyul's skills had sharply declined over time. He called Hyul trash, able to use only second circle magic during any serious combat match. Jihan smirked and asked if she had seen those weak matches with her own eyes. Se-Ah protested, insisting everyone admired Hyul's talent, even if he struggled with higher-level spells and techniques. Jihan turned serious, explaining every opponent Hyul faced so far was merely a three-circle student fighter. Jihan explained Hyul's fatal flaw, his complete incompatibility with AI magic, limiting his real strength. Sipping his drink, Jihan said Hyul survived only by using dangerous tricks and forbidden magical techniques. He insisted Hyul remained below the level of a proper magician, no matter how hard he trained. Se-Ah listened quietly, her anger hidden, as Jihan claimed Hyul would always crawl beneath them. Jihan's eyes narrowed coldly, warning if Hyul threatened their plans they would remove him without hesitation. Jihan assured himself they could stop Hyul later, smashing his cup on the ground in frustration. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the stadium, where tension silently continued to build. A soft breeze moved through the arena as the day's final match neared its start. Two fighters faced each other in the cracked arena, neither willing to step back anymore, and a single boot struck the ground with force, marking the beginning of a decisive confrontation. The referee raised his arm high, preparing to announce the final result of the intense competition. His voice echoed through the arena, declaring Shin Hyul as the champion of the second-year midterms. The crowd erupted in cheers, everyone standing to celebrate the unexpected return of the hidden prodigy. Voices mixed together, praising Hyul's mastery of forbidden magic and his unmatched talent in every duel. Hyul lifted his head proudly, feeling strength and purpose returning after years spent in quiet isolation. Sun Quan ran forward, shouting Hyul's name proudly, unable to hide how impressed he truly felt. He wrapped Hyul in a tight hug, yelling that everyone finally recognized his strength and skill today. Nearby students whispered quietly, some dismissing Hyul's victory as nothing more than tricks and forbidden spells. A teacher approached, congratulating Hyul with a smile, saying he felt proud to be his instructor. Hyul laughed as Sun Quan cheered, agreeing to celebrate together after such an exhausting and important day. Hyul smiled apologetically, explaining he wanted to join but had something important he must handle first. Sun Quan groaned loudly, throwing his arms out, begging Hyul not to skip their celebration together. Hyul laughed and insisted he truly could not stay, no matter how much they all pleaded. The crowd watched him leave while Sun Quan sighed, realizing nothing would change Hyul's serious determination anymore. As the sun set, Hyul ran toward the city, remembering the promise he needed to honor. A man in a dark suit turned sharply, surprised to see Hyul approaching so confidently alone. He stepped forward, announcing they had been expecting Hyul, and gestured calmly toward the waiting car. Then, Hyul met his gaze without fear, knowing he was finally ready to face his family. The man explained the head of the family wanted him back, insisting it could not wait. Night settled over the vast estate as Hyul prepared himself to enter the main residence again, and Hyul stood beneath the moonlight, staring up at the familiar mansion he once called home. His eyes narrowed, memories flooding back as he realized how much had changed during his absence. He remembered the moment everyone learned he was incompatible with AI magic, losing all their respect. After defying his father, he left everything behind, moving into the academy dorms without any regrets. And now, after a year apart, he stepped through the doors determined to prove himself again. Hyul walked through the quiet hall, noticing how nothing inside the mansion had changed at all. He sighed softly, feeling it was exactly as he remembered before everything fell completely apart. His footsteps echoed over the cold floor, each step bringing him closer to the final confrontation. Stopping, he looked up at the door, recognizing it immediately as his father's private study. Hyul's eyes narrowed with determination, knowing he could not turn back from this moment anymore. Hyul raised his hand and knocked firmly on the door, feeling his heartbeat start to quicken. Inside, his father sat alone at the grand desk, staring out at the moonlit night sky. Their eyes met briefly, and his father spoke in a cold voice, telling him to enter. Hyul pushed the heavy door open, stepping inside the study he had avoided for an entire year. Hyul stood beneath the glowing moon, feeling the weight of returning to this place again tonight. He stared at the tall doors, thinking he had finally made it back to this house. Inside, his father calmly turned a page, then spoke without looking up, telling him to enter. Hyul stepped forward, bowing slightly, and quietly said it had been a long time since before, and raising his eyes, Hyul met his father's cold stare, determined not to show any fear. Hyul's father gestured firmly, telling him to sit down as tension filled the silent study room. The room fell quiet, heavy with expectation, as the father prepared to speak his mind clearly. He admitted he once saw Hyul as a failure, incapable of mastering proper spells or magic. Hyul stood tall, listening as his father called him a simple, weak example of wasted potential. But the father added that despite everything, Hyul's unusual growth revealed an undeniable, exceptional talent. Hyul stayed silent while his father spoke, admitting he never expected much from this sudden return anyway. He explained he believed Hyul's actions were only a desperate attempt by someone completely cornered before. Hyul answered calmly, saying he understood his father's thoughts without showing any sign of anger now. His father revealed he read the recent article, thinking it might create an important chance for discussion. Turning back to face Hyul, he added there was still something serious needing to be addressed. Shattered fragments of cerulean magic floated around Hyul's hand as he calmly canceled the transformation spell. His father watched closely, commenting on the skill and precision Hyul demonstrated with every single movement made. He admitted that Hyul's current performance finally reached the level worthy of being called true magic. Hyul's eyes widened, surprised to hear any acknowledgement after so many years of silence and doubt. Taking a steady breath, he bowed his head slightly and spoke clearly, simply saying, "Thank you, father." His father spoke firmly, promising that the family would provide full support for Hyul's future endeavors now. He instructed Hyul to share everything required for magic research and return proudly to their house. Raising his voice, he declared Hyul would be recognized as the rightful successor of their family. Hyul listened without fear, feeling a quiet pride growing as he prepared to accept this challenge. Extending a sealed envelope, his father added there was still one more important matter to address. His father warned coldly that if he sensed any weakness, he would end Hyul's progress himself. He continued, saying that any sign of stagnation or regression would not be tolerated for long. Gripping Hyul's shoulder, he threatened to personally destroy every magical circle Hyul had worked so hard for. Hyul swallowed hard, admitting to himself he was afraid but knew this was his final chance. Standing straight, he replied firmly, ready to declare his purpose as his father demanded his goal. His father asked if Hyul still intended to become the head of the Shin family someday. Images of his siblings, Jihan, Sei'a, and Minju, flashed through his mind as he remembered every rivalry. His father declared Hyul was now stronger than any of them, surpassing their expectations entirely. Hyul stated firmly his only goal was to lead the family, nothing less would ever satisfy him. When asked how, he placed documents on the desk, declaring he would prove himself through competition. Hyul explained that competitors worldwide would gather to test their skills in this prestigious magical event. He declared confidently he would win the gold medal and prove his worth to the family. The arena, called the Magus Olympics, had hosted countless prodigies and legendary battles over many decades. This grand stage was respected everywhere, matching the difficulty of professional adult tournaments without any exceptions. His father reminded him their best result was a silver medal earned by the Blue Tower Lord. His father asked sharply if Hyul realized how unrealistic and reckless this bold declaration actually sounded now. Hyul nodded calmly, explaining that was why he needed to set a single important condition first. When pressed, he clarified his condition without hesitation, determined not to let doubt shake his resolve. He requested that during the 2 months before the tournament, the family not interfere with him. His father thought Hyul was foolish, using a promise he might fail to gain protective freedom. Morning sunlight poured over the academy building where Hyul had quietly returned after the tense family meeting. Books lay scattered across his small room, evidence of countless hours spent studying forbidden magic alone. Hyul slowly opened his tired eyes, realizing he had fallen asleep while reading another thick tome. Rubbing his forehead, he muttered to himself, wondering how long he had been unconscious there. He remembered that right after coming back from the estate, he had started researching without resting. Hyul studied the old tome carefully, knowing he must clear the second test to advance further. At that moment, he felt completely stuck, unable to understand how to reach the third circle. His only clue described resonance, something requiring the mastery stage of the second circle to achieve properly. He realized he needed to touch deep magic to approach that precise level of consonance required. Turning the page, he read he must find both the Ring of Judgment and Resonance first. Hyul raised his hand, releasing power as a bright shape of energy formed in the air. He stared at the glowing pattern, wondering if he had finally discovered the secret he needed. The mark hovered over the page, flickering softly as his heart beat faster with anticipation rising. Breathing out, he decided to take a break and clear his mind before trying it again. Outside, the bright city skyline stretched out under the blue sky, waiting for his next step. Hyul walked along the riverside path, telling himself he needed fresh air to clear his mind. He breathed deeply, enjoying the cool breeze and thinking he could finally reflect on resonance properly. While planning his study, he suddenly noticed something unusual in the distance that caught his full attention. Turning sharply, Hyul squinted ahead, trying to understand what was happening near the crowded street corner. He turned his head sharply, detecting an unusual surge of magical energy forming near his exposed neck. His eyes widened as a shimmering force expanded rapidly, confirming the presence of a concealed attacker nearby. The wave collided with his back, hurling his body forward across the crowded pavement with great force. Struggling to rise, he felt pain spreading through his shoulder. Realizing the spell had weakened his barrier, he lifted his hand, studying the faint blue glow that marked him as the mage's chosen target. A young woman appeared suddenly, pointing at him with urgency while the sky shimmered above them. He recognized her name, Apella, a figure mentioned in old records about forbidden magical experiments. Together, they started walking across the bridge, discussing the strange energy that had struck him earlier. She explained her artifact was unstable, released excess power, and then vanished into the surrounding atmosphere quickly. He apologized while offering her damaged belongings, promising to help recover the artifact before it spread further. They walked beneath the bright sky, both silent while the city continued moving calmly around them. She finally spoke, mentioning she had heard rumors about him returning home after a long absence. He nodded and explained he had returned to the Magic Tower just the previous day. She looked relieved, asking if he still planned to pursue leadership at the Magic Tower someday. He paused, surprised by her question, remembering the ambition he had hidden for many difficult years. He remembered childhood days, sitting with her on a bench, dreaming about the Magic Tower's future. He shook his head, stating firmly that becoming the Magic Tower's head was no longer his dream. Surprised, she assumed he had abandoned the dream, thinking reality's challenges had forced his decision. He smiled and corrected her, hinting his ambitions were greater than becoming the Magic Tower's leader. Confidently, he revealed his true goal, to surpass all and become the master of magic itself. He declared his ambition confidently, stating he would one day surpass all existing magic towers completely. She stood frozen, shocked by his words, struggling to understand the scope of his new vision. He proclaimed that reaching the highest level, becoming the pinnacle of all mages, was his goal. She exhaled, admitting that supporting someone with such determination and scale was truly an overwhelming experience. As night approached, they both stared silently at the sky, contemplating the path he had chosen. Night fell quietly over the Magic Tower residence, where important decisions shaped the fate of many. Inside the grand building, tension grew as anxious voices echoed through the halls and dark chambers. A young woman trembled with frustration, her fists clenched tightly while her breath came out unsteady. She shouted at her brother, demanding to know why he remained so calm and indifferent now. He answered steadily, insisting their father surely had reasons for his actions and would explain everything. He watched in silence, unable to understand why their father had created such impossible conditions now. Together, they entered the vast chamber, approaching the elder seated beneath towering windows filled with cold light. They demanded answers, asking directly why their father had summoned them so urgently without any notice. The father spoke calmly, announcing he knew their intentions and issued a strict command. Without further discussion, they were ordered to leave Hyul alone for 2 months, shocking her enough to scream loudly. She demanded an explanation, her voice trembling as she struggled to understand their father's sudden command. Their father looked calm, reminding them that Hyul had only just returned to the Magic Tower yesterday. He explained Hyul had spent a year away separated from family, training alone without any support. He decided Hyul deserved 2 months to adjust again before facing any interference or scrutiny from relatives. He accused them of planning to watch Hyul closely, fearing competition for leadership of the tower. Their father remained firm, his expression unchanging as he waited for them to accept his decision. The brother finally agreed, replying that he understood, and asked politely if any other orders remained unspoken. Their father turned away, instructing them to leave and rest since the meeting was now fully concluded. He stood alone by the window, watching the silent night while thinking over his chosen instructions carefully. The siblings walked out together, each carrying a heavy uncertainty about Hyul's return to their family. She frowned deeply, her thoughts unsettled by the order to leave Hyul unchallenged. For months her brother clenched his jaw, silently admitting he could not accept their father's decision without strong objections. He reasoned that since other siblings had no interest in leadership, they were excluded from the meeting. But he still felt uneasy, questioning why Hyul deserved special treatment after simply disappearing for a year. He suspected their father's protection had another purpose, and would only remain in effect temporarily for Hyul. He gripped the table, furious that their father's reasons remained hidden behind carefully chosen vague statements. His sister trembled, suspecting their father's health was failing, which might explain the sudden protective command. He dismissed her theory, insisting Hyul had not proven anything significant enough to earn such trust. Instead, he wondered if their father sensed hidden promise in Hyul's rapid return and new confidence. Or perhaps their father wanted to understand the strange magic system Hyul had secretly learned and mastered. She gasped and demanded to know what kind of deal their father might have arranged secretly. Frustration overwhelmed her, screaming that such orders were unlike their father and clearly favored Shin Hyul unfairly. He wondered if he should call back all the agents he had assigned to watch Hyul. He considered that their father felt confident Hyul wouldn't be exposed or caught by the hidden shadows. The shadows, their father's elite intelligence corps, could infiltrate anything and uncover every secret without leaving evidence. She looked at him seriously, demanding to know exactly what he planned to do about Hyul. He replied calmly that he was leaving, unwilling to simply wait 2 months without any action. He decided consulting the Black Tower was necessary. Suspecting Hyul had made a dangerous agreement with father, Orlick Academy stood grand, welcoming students back for another term filled with magic, ranks, and challenges. The professor announced the end of rankings, his eyes scanning papers for the name at the top. Shinshin Hyul, silent and composed, rose as the class erupted in applause, heads turning in surprise. The professor praised Shinshin Hyul's unmatched results, reminding everyone no other student had come close to his scores. Smiling subtly, Shin Hyul listened as the professor urged him to represent the class in the Academy Olympiad. Standing tall, Shin Hyul accepted the challenge without hesitation, determined to prove himself beyond basic expectations. Whispers rose as classmates mocked him quietly, doubting his success stemmed from more than beginner-level spells. They scoffed, claiming 2 months would reveal his flaws, believing his victory was just a fluke. Confident in their judgment, they labeled him a misfit unworthy of sustained recognition or higher praise. But Shin Hyul's eyes gleamed with resolve, undeterred, silently vowing to silence every doubt through undeniable results. Class ended and Ronan burst out dramatically, drained by hours of dense lectures and complex theory. He complained loudly, questioning the torment of 8 straight lessons packed with nothing but magical concepts. Shin Hyul remained calm, relieved tomorrow focused only on practical training instead of endless textbook discussions. Ronan tried to argue but collapsed dramatically. Shin Hyul blocked him, teasing his poor stamina with amusement. Exhausted and embarrassed, Ronan stared up with teary eyes, questioning if magic alone could save him. Ronan chased Shin Hyul in frustration, pretending to retaliate but barely keeping pace after the long day. Shin Hyul teased again, casually suggesting physical training as a solution to Ronan's constant magical and physical shortcomings. Ronan exploded, vowing revenge and swearing to train just to hit Shin Hyul at least once. Unbothered, Shin Hyul proposed a post-dinner session in the training room, smirking as the sun began to set. Flustered, Ronan hesitated, his pride bruised and body aching, too sore to accept another challenge that day. Shin Hyul crossed his arms, unimpressed, daring Ronan to admit he simply didn't want to train. Ronan snapped back, insisting it wasn't exercise he hated, just the idea of doing it with Shin Hyul. Confused, Shin Hyul asked what made training with him so unbearable, genuinely curious about Ronan's sudden resistance. With a rare seriousness, Ronan admitted it. He feared the way others stared whenever Shin Hyul moved. Inside the training room, Shin Hyul lifted impossible weight effortlessly while Ronan struggled, attracting attention just by association. Shin Hyul urged Junik to take training seriously, pointing out strength mattered just as much as magic. Spectators gathered in awe, whispering about the boy lifting impossible weight without magical support or assistance. Shin Hyul's grip tightened as the barbell slammed down, raw power earned through grit, not enchantments. He stepped away calmly, realizing how much he'd ignored his body while mastering complex runecraft. Remembering ancient wisdom, Shin Hyul admitted the truth: neglecting strength was warned even in the foundational magic scriptures. The book revealed a truth: the infinity circle's flow aligned closely with muscle development and endurance. Physical training amplified the circle's reach, strengthening not just the body but magical control and flow. Realizing this, Shin Hyul committed to mastering both disciplines, building harmony between spellcraft and personal strength. With renewed purpose, he trained relentlessly, each lift reinforcing balance between arcane power and physical resilience. Yet, far beyond the academy's walls, a sinister force stirred, its gaze fixed on him. Suddenly, Shin Hyul stood surrounded. Mystic beasts circled him, their growls sharp, eyes glowing with hostile intent. The panthers lunged forward, swift and relentless, their claws slicing the air with unnatural, eerie precision. Shin Hyul dodged quickly, instincts and training converging as he narrowly avoided a lethal frontal strike. Electric energy surged through his gaze, focused, calm, calculating. He prepared to unleash strength he'd honed with discipline. With blinding speed, he countered, slicing between enemies mid-leap, his movements precise and enhanced by awakened synergy. The panthers dashed again faster, sharper flickering with dark energy as they closed in from both sides. Shin Hyo leapt backward, narrowly dodging claws grazed air where his chest had been seconds before. He summoned flame, focused it into his palm. The fireball pulsed with raw, compressed magical energy. Flame Vulcan erupted outward, engulfing attackers with controlled destruction, pushing back the monsters in blazing arcs. Silence followed. From above, the system confirmed Shin Hyul had cleared the monster rush simulation flawlessly. The instructor announced results with a grin. Everyone awaited the outcome of Shin Hyul monster rush performance. A perfect clear, full marks. Shin Hyul smiled with quiet pride as applause filled the training hall. While others whispered in awe, Shin Hyul remained seated, calmly reviewing the after effects within his own body. He confirmed it. His physical capabilities had surged, boosted by the Infinity Circle's unseen internal amplification. Driven by insight, Shin Hyul resolved to evolve further, unlocking the third circle to reach peak synergy. Shin Hyul inhaled slowly, channeling energy inward, ready to refine the Infinity Circle through deeper concentration. Mana flared brightly as he sat still, circulating both rings steadily through every limb and core. He fine-tuned the Ring of Resistance and Ring of Will, syncing their movement and rotation speed. With precision, he aligned mana paths at near-perfect levels, each adjustment strengthening control over his internal flow. Though sweat formed, he pushed further, determined to overcome the stubborn final 1% of synchronization difficulty. Shin Hyul stared at the screen. Circle Master level loomed high, but his determination only grew stronger. He stepped out with purpose, every footfall a silent vow to break his limits through effort. Breathing steady, he picked up pace, muscles burning, rhythm tight, pushing farther than the day before. The academy's buildings blurred past him, but his focus stayed locked on unseen goals ahead. From the shadows, a hooded figure observed quietly, intent unknown, but presence cloaked in silent threat. Shin Hyul's senses flared. He spun instantly as a sudden strike whooshed past, barely missing his head. A cloaked figure lunged again, blade slicing the air. Shin Hyul blocked, feet bracing against the assault. He stepped back quickly, eyes sharp. His voice rang out, demanding the attacker reveal themselves. Recognition struck those eyes, that stance. Shin Hyul's expression tightened as he confirmed the identity without doubt. The hood fell slightly, white hair flashed. The attacker was Baek Sayuk, an old rival reborn. A masked attacker lunged from the shadows, blade slicing air, aiming straight for Shin Hyul exposed ribs. Shin Hyul twisted back just in time, dodging narrowly, eyes locking on the assassin's sudden silent retreat. His heart raced. The crimson glow in his eye flared. Recognition struck as memories long buried surfaced. The figure's silver hair slipped from his hood. Shin Hyul mind screamed the name Baek Sunhak, betrayer. Brother. Without hesitation, Shin Hyul drew his blade, charging forward. Vengeance burned. Their unfinished past demanded brutal resolution now. Baek Sunhak growled and swung with fury. His pride cracked as blood dripped from his clenched jaw. Shin Hyul dropped low, catching his breath. The counterattack stung, but his eyes never lost their calculating calm. He smirked, brushing blood from his lip, thinking of old rivalries, unspoken truths, and their shattered past. Sunhak cursed from above. Shin Hyul circled carefully, watching how the elder brother's anger exposed his flawed stance. Laughter escaped Shin Hyul, chest mocking, honest, cruel. Vengeance burned less than truth. Sunhak's downfall was always self-inflicted. Their magic clashed mid-air, icy blue and burning red. Power surged wildly, drawing startled gazes from onlookers nearby. Sunhak's fury ignited. Flames erupted from his fist, scorching the air as he roared in blind rage. Shin Hyul froze, sensing the shift. The crowd whispered, unsettled. His opponent had crossed an irreversible, reckless line. Enforcers murmured from the shadows. Unauthorized magic sparked alarm. Shin Hyul braced himself. Sunhak's downfall would now be public. Red eyes narrowed. Shin Hyul stepped forward, his focus sharpened. The fight was no longer personal, it was judgment. Shin Hyul parried the flaming strike, stepped in close, and drove his elbow into Sunhak's exposed ribs. Shock spread across Sunhak's face. He had underestimated his brother. Shin Hyul's speed now outmatched his burning rage. Sunhak hit the ground hard. Shin Hyul stood firm, silent, his presence towering with calm and buried pain. As Sunhak screamed, Shin Hyul's eyes held no joy. Victory meant nothing. This was survival, not revenge. Overhead, sirens blared. Agents arrived below. Shin Hyul looked upward. This was over, but everything else was just beginning. Sunhak thrashed in fury, restrained by officials. His pride wounded deeper than his body, he screamed threats. The lead officer urged calm, dragging him aside. There was protocol even for traitors of noble blood. Shin Hyul stood nearby, unshaken. His report was brief. Emotionless Sunhak had attacked. First magic had crossed the line. Surveillance footage confirmed the truth. The city's laws were absolute. Reckless power had no shield anymore. Shin Hyul watched as order returned. He exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, questions would begin. Tonight, he walked alone, undefeated. Shin Hyul whispered the name, crimson eyes glowing. He wouldn't forget not the fight, nor the pain. Above, the stars offered silence. His thoughts echoed louder. Purpose remained, but peace would never come easy. Morning sunlight warmed the academy rooftop. Another day began, but the scars of last night lingered. Inside, students gossiped and whispered. The name Baek Sunhyuk now meant disgrace, not power or legacy. The bulletin sealed it formal punishment, reputation shattered, his downfall displayed like warning ink on school walls. Whispers of favoritism grew louder. 10 demerits for public magic use. It reeked of something hidden. Shin Hyul narrowed his eyes. The truth was clear. Power wasn't just magic. It wore tailored suits, too. The Baek family had bought silence. Prestige flowed with money, and Sunhyuk's punishment had a price tag. Shin Hyul walked the corridor, quiet but resolute. Justice here bent often, yet he would never bow. Behind him, the voice returned loud, angry, unrepentant. Sunhyuk hadn't learned, and Shin Hyul he was ready again. Sunhyuk stood alone, phone trembling in hand. His apology echoed uselessly against polished pillars and silence. His father's voice boomed, ruthless and cold. Sunhyuk flinched. He wasn't a son, just a tool for legacy. The mansion walls stood tall, but he felt small. Shame coiled tighter than any magic binding. He ended the call, chest heavy. Apologies didn't matter. Only success and failure wrote names in the Baek ledger. Anger blurred his vision. Regret burned worse. Sunhyuk's war wasn't with Shin Hyul, it was with his bloodline. The doors slammed open. Rage surged through Sunhyuk as he stormed out, heart pounding louder than footsteps. His blade glinted mid-swing, cleaving air. Phantom enemy, real fury. Shin Hyul name echoed like a curse. Memories blurred. His eye twitched, jaw clenched. Shin Hyul, Shin Hyul, Shin Hyul. That name strangled every thought in him. Sunhyuk sprinted, blinded by hate. The sun burned, but not as fiercely as his spiraling emotions. He ran harder. The world tilted. His rage needed a target, and Shin Hyul was everything wrong. Instructor Smith's words cut sharper than any spell. Sunhyuk's rage hadn't gone unnoticed by those in power. His name startled Sunhyuk. He straightened, masking the rawness. Authority's attention could either crush or elevate him. Sunhyuk barked defensively, but it rang hollow. The fire inside him needed direction. Smith sensed it clearly. The instructor smiled, stepping closer. Power laced his voice. Revenge, he said. That's something you can control. Sunhyuk's scowl twisted slowly into a grin. For once, someone wasn't silencing him, they were handing him a weapon. Smith's words echoed through shadows. Temptation whispered like smoke, poisonous and seductive. Revenge always cost more than pain. The academy remained still. But behind those windows, rivalries, secrets, and quiet deals reshaped the battlefield. Shin Hyul reclined calmly, thoughts sharp. The chaos brought opportunities, not just survival, but leverage in a silent war. A message arrived. One glance confirmed it: his family now owned a stake in the Baek fortune. Deals had been struck, not with spells or swords, but silence. Shin Hyul won battles others never saw. Shin Hyul read the message silently. Rewards meant little. He'd already taken what truly mattered: status, influence, control. The night city pulsed below. Deals had reshaped empires. Baek's fall was no accident, but design. Shin Hyul stood alone with his crest burning behind him. The world now knew his bloodline's strength. In silence, he grasped what titles meant. Not honor, but leverage. Power wrapped in ceremonial approval. Sunhyuk was cast out unspoken, yet clear. He'd lost more than pride. He'd lost his place forever. With conflict fading, Shin Hyul returned to study. Power mattered, but so did growth, knowledge, and quiet preparation. The academy basked in calm skies. Beneath it, ambition simmered. Students moved forward, none unchanged. Shin Hyul stared upward, thoughtful. Reputation had shifted. Even cultivation discussions now revolved around his name and deeds. The voice called from behind. Familiar, controlled. Shin Hyul turned slowly, his smirk polite, but instincts alert. Instructor Smith approached, smiling. The stage hadn't cleared, it was only resetting. Another game was beginning. Smith's tone softened, but his eyes didn't. His words came measured, laced with deliberate ambiguity. Shin Hyul stood firm, expression unreadable. He understood games now, especially those played with smiles, not spells. Smith confessed to past offenses, masking threats as advice. Experience had taught him diplomacy was leverage. Shin Hyul didn't flinch. Respect wasn't owed. Power wasn't trusted. Words alone couldn't sway someone forged by fire. Still, he nodded. Let the instructor speak. Shin Hyul would listen, then decide whether to strike or wait. Smith extended his hand with a smile. Let's start over, he said, voice smooth as silk. Shin Hyul responded with a nod. But something shifted. A ripple of darkness prickled beneath his skin. His eyes widened, magic flared unnaturally. Something was wrong. The air itself recoiled from the surging foreign energy. Smith stood cloaked in purple mana, voice like thunder. I sincerely hope you found your own path. Shin Hyul instinct screamed. This wasn't renewal, it was warning. Whatever Smith was hiding, it wasn't human anymore. Civilians moved through the plaza unaware. Peace masked the pressure quietly rising beneath the surface of reality. An arcane explosion tore through the sky. Raw magic burst loose, warping space and warping nearby technology. An old mage lifted his gaze. His eyes glowed crimson, recognizing the magic signature from his past. A fortress cloaked in purple mist emerged. Its shields flickered, unable to fully suppress the awakening surge. Several high-ranking agents assembled quickly. They activated defensive barriers, preparing for whoever or whatever had just returned again. The young mage gritted his teeth. Energy readings had spiked beyond protocol thresholds. Something felt deeply wrong. Instructor Smith levitated midair, trapped by threads of runes. His body twitched, suspended inside a mana cage. Memories clicked into place. The tower's core had begun leaking energy weeks ago. Ignored warnings now made sense. Panic surged, but he refocused. There was no time to argue over past decisions or blame. He activated his interface, scanning the arcane output. Every metric screamed collapse, yet the structure held firm. His eye flared red, analyzing the flow. The structure of the magic confirmed his suspicion instantly. It was a rare, prohibited technique. The signature clearly pointed to an advanced-level mind control spell construct. Fortunately, his mental defenses had been enhanced. Neural patterns blocked the invasive signals, preserving conscious control completely. Instructor Smith stood still, puppet-like. The student realized the control spell had failed to override his thoughts. He scanned the plaza. No one noticed the manipulation yet. He needed to act before exposure. He narrowed his gaze slightly, lowering suspicion. Internal commands rerouted to focus on memory trace capture. Pretending to obey, he positioned himself for contact. His real goal: extract tower data without alerting anyone. A forced chuckle masked suspicion. They walked slowly as mana threads began probing for hidden memory locks. The old man scoffed, unaware. His pride blocked reason. He believed control was intact despite clear resistance. He leaned closer to whisper, tone lowered, words heavy. Something critical was about to be revealed directly. The old man pressed a sealed cube into Shin Hyul's hand. Purple energy seeped from its surface. Shin Hyul nodded calmly, concealing discomfort. The item pulsed lightly, sinking faintly with his suppressed core signature. Suddenly, pressure thickened around them. The elder's tone shifted. He demanded information about Shin Hyul's forbidden mutation technique. A surge clashed in Shin Hyul's mind. He staggered, instantly unable to resist the probe targeting suppressed memories. The elder observed coldly. Shin Hyul's reaction confirmed suspicion. Something deeply dangerous was locked inside his magical genome. Shin Hyul gasped for air, sweat dripping. Internal pressure built fast. Something was digging deeper than before. The elder's hand glowed with dark symbols. Threads of mana latched onto Shin Hyul's spine, extending upward. Mind control magic targeted core cognition. Visual data streamed inward, triggering subconscious memory leaks and involuntary reactions. Known as forbidden black magic, it bypassed ethical constraints and rewired neural safeguards to isolate truth. Shin Hyul resisted violently, but the instructor already sensed fear. He knew this meant the truth was hidden. The elder clenched his teeth, barely suppressing frustration. Shin Hyul's resistance had stalled the full extraction process. Wiping his face, the man composed himself. He dismissed Shin Hyul's power as unworthy of his rank. Still, Shin Hyul's vision magic was useful. The elder decided to claim it, but only after mission completion. Shin Hyul swayed slightly. A sharp pulse ran through him, followed by a flicker in his vision. Feigning concern, the instructor backed off. His tone lightened, hiding the threat beneath a smile of farewell. Shin Hyul replied quietly, masking strain. His legs moved automatically, though his focus lagged behind the conversation. The instructor walked ahead, disappearing into the crowd. Shin Hyul remained still, watching him blend into others. A shadow crossed Shin Hyul's face. He breathed slowly, calming his scattered thoughts and scanning his surroundings. Students chatted around him, unaware of what had occurred. Their world remained blissfully untouched for now. He joined the crowd in silence. Internally, the mission began one he couldn't afford to fail. The courtyard buzzed with life. Shin Hyul moved away from crowds, choosing a quiet bench under shade. He sat down, clutching the cube. Thoughts churned as he examined the object more closely now. Bringing it near his eye, he activated analysis. A strange marking pulsed from the internal circuitry. His vision confirmed the truth. It was an illegal AI invocation chip, banned under strict regulatory codes. Realization hit hard. Giving this to him meant only one thing: someone wanted to frame him. A media leak spread fast. News outlets accused Shin Hyul of misusing illegal magic devices for advancement. He reviewed the headlines, noting exact phrases. The framing was methodical, clearly staged to damage him. Shin Hyul weighed his options. Though Smith was involved, even he lacked reason to act alone. This wasn't just academic sabotage, it was strategic removal before the Black Tower's internal power realignment. He identified 4 rivals. Each had motive. One wanted his magic, another, his position at stake. He ruled out his sister Malin. Though strong, she had no stake in the current succession. Likewise, his older brother lacked initiative. A loyal follower of rules, not one for covert schemes. That left 2 others more ambitious, more reckless. Their history showed patterns matching this type of sabotage. Shin Hyul clenched his fist. Rage simmered, but strategy had to come before emotion. Timing was key. Capturing Smith wouldn't help. The man was likely just a pawn disposable if secrets risked exposure. Shin Hyul steadied his breath, gathering his thoughts. He had decided to confront the situation head-on. The tower loomed above him, glowing faintly. It held the answers buried behind layers of control. Inside, polished floors echoed under his steps. The silence pressed down as tension quietly built within. A man stood facing the skyline. Without turning, he acknowledged Shin Hyul's presence with calm familiarity. He finally turned to speak. Shin Hyul stood still, ready to reveal what he had discovered alone. Kim Kang-in's eyes narrowed. His posture shifted slightly, revealing a sharp awareness of Shin Hyul's intent. Shin Hyul observed the man closely. Kang-in's mood had shifted, colder now, as if concealing calculated control. Without hesitation, Shin Hyul readied himself mentally. He knew this moment would not come again so easily. The student stood firm as the instructor approached, tension rising under the blazing midday sun's sharp glare. Despite the warning, he activated the hidden device, its glow pulsing wildly, triggering a shift in the air. Suspicion grew as the instructor circled him. He knew escape was impossible now, but discovery meant failure. A strange shard surfaced from his case, humming with dormant power. The instructor's eyes widened in recognition. Staring at the glimmering elemental manite, he knew this was fate, an unrepeatable moment to change everything. The professor stood with urgency, cutting formalities short. His tone carried pressure and impatience without hesitation. Outside, he measured the student's presence, suspicious that someone young could provoke such high-level concern and secrecy. He demanded justification for this meeting. Anything less than extraordinary would be dismissed without further audience. Remaining composed, the student read the room carefully. He needed cooperation, not conflict, to proceed carefully. He leaned forward, revealing the real reason: an unstable crystal behind the Tower Master's disappearance, elemental manalite. The professor jerked upright in shock. The term elemental manalite wasn't meant to exist outside whispers. Eyes narrowed, he demanded answers. That crystal's identity was classified, unknown to anyone beyond inner council members. The student remained unfazed, fingers raised in calm defiance. His confidence provoked tension that filled the room. He leaned back slightly, clarifying he wasn't a spy nor a thief. His source was something deeper. With measured grace, he reached into his coat and revealed it, his own shard of elemental manalite. The professor jumped from his seat, startled by the radiant force suddenly pulsing from the student's hand. Eyes wide, he recognized the impossible. His instincts screamed as truth collided with what he once believed forbidden. The student held the crystal calmly. Its glow confirmed authenticity, the rarest form of pure elemental manalite. Suspicion lingered. The professor studied him, demanding to know if he truly shaped the manalite with intention. Without hesitation, the student affirmed his role. He created it, mastered it, and now revealed his capability. The Red Tower's top engineer, once unmatched in crafting, was now forced to reevaluate everything silently. Despite the Blue Tower's proud artisans, none had ever shaped elemental manalite with such natural precision before. Even the professor, ranking among the top 3 crafters, felt completely surpassed by the young student's talent. He questioned whether this outcome was fate or luck, unsettled by how easily his legacy felt shaken. The student confirmed both he earned it and chose the Blue Tower because it could contain the power. The professor leaned in, curiosity replacing skepticism. He asked how the student had created the impossible. Expression steady, Shin Hyul refused to explain. He dismissed it as coincidence and rare luck, avoiding deeper truths. With the crystal glowing faintly, he deflected further inquiry. His words danced around truth without revealing technique. The professor chuckled, acknowledging the dodge. Despite doubts, he accepted that some knowledge remains deliberately hidden. Respectfully, he yielded. Mages, after all, deserve secrets. The discussion ended with quiet agreement and subtle admiration. The professor analyzed the shard closely, identifying it as the only known stone holding 4 elemental properties. He recognized its rarity and asked about the student's intention behind revealing such a powerful material now. Shin Hyul responded firmly, explaining that he planned to craft an artifact using the manalite as its core. The professor reacted with disbelief. Few dared attempt such a feat with a source of raw instability. He considered the artifact's potential form defensive gear, channeling focus, or maybe a legendary weapon of overwhelming strength. Shin Hyul considered the options calmly. For basic enhancement, any medium-grade artifact would serve the function efficiently. Yet he paused. Using manalite meant standards were different. Ordinary materials could weaken its true potential entirely. He explained that quality materials were essential. The costs would rise, but he was fully prepared. The professor laughed, assuming Shin Hyul's magical lineage meant the family would cover the expense without hesitation. But Shin Hyul rejected the assumption. He requested secrecy. This artifact must remain hidden, even from his own bloodline. The elder chuckled, amused by Shin Hyul's discretion. Still, the matter of payment couldn't be ignored forever. A magical calculation spell hovered mid-air, its symbols rotating rapidly. The total cost shocked even the professor. He questioned Shin Hyul's plan. Handling this alone, without family funding, seemed irrational and nearly impossible by tradition. Shin Hyul declined help. Instead, he boldly declared he would craft the elemental manalite here without delay. The professor's pulse quickened. Realization struck. Shin Hyul was prepared to demonstrate advanced magical crafting on the spot. Laughter echoed between them. Despite high stakes, both parties welcomed the bold deal with surprising ease. The professor agreed enthusiastically. Shin Hyul's proposal exceeded expectations, even allowing for additional support beyond the original request. Shin Hyul seized the moment. With momentum in his favor, he asked for one more specific favor. The professor hesitated. If unrelated to the artifact, it risked derailing the entire focus of their meeting. Shin Hyul revealed a separate item, an anonymous briefing disc labeled Level 6. The professor froze, stunned by its presence. Shin Hyul clenched his fist. The information disc was evidence tied directly to a dangerous hidden conspiracy. He revealed the truth. A Black Tower mage from the Academy had secretly passed him the file. Shin Hyul warned that Black Tower agents were currently infiltrating Obelisk Academy, operating in secrecy and gathering influence. With urgency in his voice, he asked for direct assistance in eliminating the infiltrators without hesitation. Later that night, under the moon's gaze, Shin Hyul departed silently, his request now hanging in the air. Shin Hyul offered a final warning. The mission ahead was uncertain, and vigilance was now essential. She nodded without hesitation. Confidence in her eyes, she promised they would meet again when ready. As her car disappeared down the quiet road, Shin Hyul stood alone beneath the fading city lights. Later, silence filled the dormitory hallway. He entered without a word, footsteps steady but heavy. He dropped onto the bed, fully clothed, exhaustion finally catching up after a day of revelations. Shin Hyul stared at the manalite. Fortune had aligned perfectly enough to keep everything hidden for now. Kim Kangan's separate research provided cover. Shin Hyul could pursue crafting the artifact without drawing family suspicion. Relieved, Shin Hyul avoided negotiating rights with Baiko. The delay granted time to stabilize his position discreetly. If nothing interfered, his control over the artifact's fate would remain secure for just a while longer. Meanwhile, the professor reflected in doubt. Whispers of strange activity at Obelisk Academy resurfaced in his thoughts. The tower stood silent, its spires ominous. Beneath it, hidden agents from the Black Tower remained active. Shin Hyul presented the chip, aware its illegal origin made it fragile evidence despite its undeniable importance. The professor doubted the claim. Normally, such suspicions from students lacked weight and wouldn't trigger formal action. Still, he gave permission. Despite the risks, he decided to trust Shin Hyul instincts and proceed carefully. He exited the meeting room calmly, confident in the operation's success, phone pressed against his ear. Down the quiet hallway his steps echoed. He moved alone, calculating every possible variable with precision. The caller confirmed the data transfer. He gripped his phone tightly, knowing the consequences of failure. In the elevator, the city lights reflected on his suit. He whispered final instructions, almost done. The doors opened silently. He stepped out into the grand hall, operation already shifting into motion. He declared his choice calmly. The weight of responsibility settled, yet his expression remained sharp and steady. The room fell silent. Every guest at the table processed the decision, tension softening into quiet approval. Outside, winter skies mirrored his clarity. A chapter had closed, now the path forward was finally clear. She applauded him warmly. Her gesture broke the silence, welcoming his return as both heir and man. Surrounded by familiar faces, he stood taller. No longer unsure, he was ready to lead them all. His older brother greeted him loudly, laughter echoing. The mood shifted, warmth returning to the formal gathering. He placed a hand on Shin Hyul's shoulder, tone mixed part welcome, part warning wrapped beneath practiced smiles. Shin Hyul nodded respectfully. Despite past tension, he answered sincerely, grateful for the gesture, even if partly forced. Whispers stirred from across the room. Curiosity bloomed among younger onlookers, their thoughts innocent but sharp. He turned to the table, pausing briefly. Familiar faces stared back some kind, others unreadable, all watching closely. Jihan's comment came with a smile, but Shin Hyul sensed the subtle edge beneath the playful words. Seiya acknowledged him coolly, eyes sharp. She assessed him with practiced poise, offering no warmth yet. Shin Hyul remained composed, but his mind scanned deeper. Surface greetings couldn't conceal the atmosphere's underlying tension. He nodded slowly, sensing the trap. The invitation masked intent, yet he had prepared for everything. Jihan spoke casually, but his gaze lingered. Shin Hyul's vague reply offered nothing and yet said everything. Shin Hyul addressed the table calmly. He spoke of distance, of family drift, and why reunion mattered now. Her tone sharpened instantly. To her, his words sounded hollow, an excuse masking something far more calculated. He stood his ground, voice level. Truth or not, he welcomed their skepticism with quiet confidence. Chairs scraped harshly. One relative snapped, disgusted by what they saw as arrogance behind his measured words. Another rose, unwilling to be patient. Her voice cut through tension, demanding clarity, daring him to reveal everything. She demanded clarity, accusing him of scheming. Her voice trembled between challenge, suspicion, and restrained frustration. Shin Hyul posed a quiet question. If his denial held truth, would anyone present even believe him now? The table fell still. From above, distrust blanketed the room, thick and shared by nearly everyone. She scoffed, dismissing civility. For her, vague words equaled danger. She demanded facts, not vague posturing. Jihan broke the tension. He spoke with a smile, but his words pressed with political weight. Shin Hyul froze. The sharp mention of vision magic revealed more than he'd expected. Pressure rose around him instantly. They misunderstood his intent. To them, vision magic meant surrender, abandoning ambition, abandoning the right to lead. Tension exploded. Voices clashed again. Seiya's rejection echoed harshly, denying that this magic could be anything sincere. Breathing steady, Shin Hyul raised his hand. Silence fell as shimmering magic began to unfold in the air. He spoke clearly. Vision magic wasn't a game, it was his only path forward. As a powerless heir, Seiya yielded reluctantly. Her pride cracked under pressure, but she masked it with a reluctant concession. Others followed her lead. Despite confusion, they accepted his words, uncertain but not openly hostile anymore. Shin Hyul bowed his head slightly, offering gratitude. He knew gaining acceptance didn't mean earning their trust yet. Laughter broke the tension. Inyuk raised his glass, eager to pivot away from conflict toward comfort. The mood softened. Curiosity replaced suspicion. They wanted stories, not standoff. Shin Hyul hesitated, thoughts guarded behind his silence. The table had shifted to dessert. Conversations lightened, and the earlier weight had mostly drifted away. Laughter returned. Even the stiffest relatives leaned back now, momentarily forgetting why they'd braced themselves earlier. Old jokes surfaced. Memories spilled into the room, blurring present suspicion with fragments of easier younger times. The clock struck, its chimes sliced through warmth, subtle but sharp enough to pull him back inward. Shin Hayul's smile faded. Time pressed forward. The reprieve had passed, now came what he truly prepared for. A sharp ringtone pierced the calm. A news alert appeared, glowing crimson on a polished screen. Phones vibrated across the table. Every sibling reached instinctively, expressions shifting from casual to cautious alarm. Confusion spread fast. Eyes scanned headlines, breath caught mid-sentence. The gathering's warmth cracked without warning. She looked up, eyes wide. The urgency in the message sent a chill down her spine. Sea's tone turned cold. Whatever arrived, this wasn't routine. Something critical was happening, and it wouldn't wait. Jihan narrowed his eyes. The alert's tone had changed. The silence around him was no coincidence. Shin Hayul glanced down at his own device. His expression hardened, realizing this wasn't just internal politics. The urgent message loaded fully. Its content was clear. Someone dangerous had resurfaced, connected to their bloodline. He lowered the phone slowly, gaze now guarded. Questions would follow, but not before suspicion settled. His eyes sharpened. One phrase echoed in his mind, found him, and he knew they meant him. Shin Hayul's chest tightened. The message confirmed it. His instincts were right. Danger had crept too close again. He left the hall quickly, gripping his device tightly. One name kept repeating in his thoughts. Outside, under the night sky, the truth settled. Hanul's warning hadn't been paranoia. It was accurate. He scanned the full report. Evidence lined up clearly. Someone in the family was the trigger. Shin Hayul clenched his hand. Doubt wasn't an option. He'd act soon, but not without knowing the full truth. Shin Hayul pieced the logic together. The clues weren't random data patterns aligned under one calculated conclusion. A shadowed figure appeared in his mental projection. Malice and stealth marked the target's recent movements. The Academy's layout and lecture schedules narrowed the suspect's opportunity to act down to one location. Friday exam day stood out. The distraction of combat made it perfect cover for illicit manipulation. If he planned sabotage, he'd strike the materials. Tampering before distribution was the only realistic window. The door burst open. She arrived just in time, timing perfect to trigger everything Shin Hayul anticipated. Thursday night, the final gap before test day. It was the moment everything aligned behind the scenes. His preparations paid off. Surveillance was active. Traps were laid. Now all that remained was proof. As his family talked upstairs, he coordinated silently. The Blue Tower intercepted movement from the supply room. Instructor Smith was exposed. But deeper, Shin Hayul's focus turned toward Jihan, whose silence now felt like concealment. Shin Hayul exhaled deeply. The operation had worked, every move calculated, every step hidden in plain sight. He walked alone, unhurried. The truth was exposed, yet none suspected how tightly he'd steered events. Recognition wasn't necessary. Still, the Blue Tower acknowledged him. Their praise confirmed the silent success he achieved. Shin Hayul grinned subtly. Rewards were welcome, but his true focus remained on keeping Hanul's predictions fulfilled. The phone rang. He answered calmly, ready to deliver the final update and begin the next move. Shin Hayul ended the call with calm confidence. The mission was done. He expected silence, not chaos. But everything changed in an instant. A deafening blast tore through the night without warning. Flames erupted behind him. Screams followed. Someone had attacked. The timing was no coincidence. He hit the ground hard, stunned. Dust and heat filled the air. Panic gripped his chest. Through the smoke, a shadow emerged. A voice repeated his name, mocking, angry, and drawing closer fast. The attacker emerged through smoke, magic pulsing violently. His eyes locked on Shin Hayul, intent on destruction. Shin Hayul stood frozen. The enemy's killing intent surged forward, loud, direct, and filled with merciless hatred.
Smoke and flames coiled in the distance as Huel's shadowed enemy prepared for a brutal final strike. With hatred in his voice, the enemy cursed Huel and lunged forward, summoning fire to his hand. Hyul's name echoed through the void as he sensed something awaken within his sealed magical core. An explosive surge burst beneath his feet. The enemy's scream trailed behind as power returned to Hyul. Blazing blue aura sparked around Huel's body faster than light, his crimson eyes locked on the falling target. Huel raised his arm, summoning a spiraling torrent. His water shield roared up against the incoming blast. Straining with grit, Huel clenched his jaw, but pressure surged as cracks formed along the watery barrier. Inside the collapsing vortex, Hyul realized the torrent's strength far surpassed his current control over defensive magic. Focusing every ounce of will, Hyul twisted his fingers, reinforcing the shield before the core ruptured outward. The impact landed beyond the barrier. Flames erupted across the city skyline, shaking buildings and scattering broken glass. Thrown back by the shockwave, Hyul crashed onto the concrete, his limbs aching and breath uneven. Blood dripped from his scorched arm. The shield had held, but not without a painful cost. His opponent laughed coldly from across the plaza, stepping forward with arrogant confidence and controlled footsteps. Eyes gleaming red, the enemy mocked Hyul's survival, declaring their massive difference in magic and skill. Despite injuries, Hyul stood again, fists clenched. Baek Sahyuk's name burned like fire in his spinning mind. Baek Sahyuk suddenly staggered, his laughter turning wild. Hyul's posture had shifted into something unnaturally calm. A crimson haze flooded Hyul's gaze, his pupils narrowed, and energy spiraled uncontrollably around his clenched form. Sahyuk's eyes widened as he recognized the vial of forbidden alchemical drug shattered and spilled onto Hyul's blood. Flames ignited along Hyul's skin as berserker magic consumed reason, flooding his nerves with violent arcane adrenaline. Face twitching, Sahyuk screamed at Hyul's recklessness, but Hyul only grinned, now entirely driven by pure survival instinct. Panting hard, Hyul focused his internal flow and activated third circle magic. Burning injections surged through his veins. Without hesitation, he lunged forward and grabbed Sahyuk, slamming him down with a reinforced burst of strength. Blood smeared his jaw, but Hyul laughed through clenched teeth, muscles refusing to yield despite the damage. Sahyuk hissed in disbelief. Eyes twitching, Hyul's pain threshold had vanished under the berserker's volatile, twisted magical force. With a wild grin, Sahyuk's pupil narrowed. He welcomed the madness, fully committed to a fatal conclusion. With a shout, Hyul unleashed burning injection directly into Sahyuk's chest, flame bursting between their locked bodies. A thick pillar of smoke spiraled skyward, muffling the chaos that echoed across the burning schoolyard. The stars shimmered above as the magic storm subsided, leaving silence where fire once violently roared. From the smoke, Sahyuk appeared again, stepping over Hyul's crumpled body with disbelief in his eyes. He stared down, panting. Hyul still breathed. Twice now, the boy had survived his lethal finishing strikes. Hyul exhaled slowly, blood on his lips, his eyes meeting Sahyuk's hateful glare without fear. Sahyuk froze, trembling. Rage swelled inside him as Hyul's quiet defiance cut deeper than magic ever could. Screaming violently, Sahyuk clawed his face, losing control as madness and fury collided inside his berserker brain. Then, as if flipping a switch, Sahyuk shrugged casually, cold laughter replacing the tantrum like nothing happened. Hyul smirked faintly, recognizing the signs. Those unhinged mood shifts were proof the berserker drug still lingered. Magic surged again as Hyul raised his arm, sensing the overwhelming force radiating from Sahyuk's core. He narrowed his eyes, confused. The berserker drug shouldn't grant this much raw magical amplification or stability. Doubt gnawed at him. Something felt unnatural. Hyul debated, checking deeper, questioning the true source of Sahyuk's power. Drawing breath, he lifted his hand and summoned a slicing wind spell. Light curved sharply around his wrist. Blades of air howled through the night sky toward Sahyuk, who stood calmly, gaze locked and unshaken. Sahyuk exploded in rage, flames circling his fist as he prepared to obliterate Hyul's incoming spell. Hyul readied himself, realizing Wind Sphere lacked the cutting force to overwhelm Sahyuk's shielded, fiery counterattack. The city lights shimmered below as Sahyuk hurled his fireball, bright, wild, and carelessly powered by wrath. Hyul gritted his teeth. He hadn't expected escalation this fast, but knew retreat wasn't an option anymore. Channeling concentrated wind into a sphere, Hyul cast his next move with urgency. Arrow boom ignited midair. Hyul's eyes widened as shockwaves approached. His arrow boom struck, but retaliation was already heading toward him. The spell had landed. Hyul's heart raced with hope, believing he'd finally overwhelmed Sahyuk's defenses. But Sahyuk emerged through flames, manic grin stretching wide, channeling pure fire mana into a burning core. At point-blank range, the flame shotgun spell ignited, aiming to vaporize Hyul without room to dodge. Hyul's pupils contracted as Sahyuk screamed in fury, unleashing his ultimate spell with reckless final desperation. Flames streaked toward Hyul, but he stood firm, calculating the spell's limited reach with startling precision. Sahyuk watched closely, eyes twitching, Something felt off. Hyul wasn't dodging even as fire spiraled in. Then realization struck. No way, Hyul would simply miscalculate. There had to be a reason for this. The spell missed completely. Hyul stepped through smoke, mocking calmly, revealing he'd never activated his movement chip. Sayuk cracked with laughter, veins glowing green, dismissing Hyul's words as madness. His corrupted mana flaring with volatile instability. Hyul stared straight ahead, voice steady. Sayuk had forgotten everything, even the chip he once relied on. Irritated, Sayuk's purple-tinted mana flickered from his eye, a sign of unstable pressure nearing combustion again. Enraged, he launched another reckless strike, shouting insults, his movement traced by sharp lines of green light. Hyul easily sidestepped the incoming attack, explaining the chip's true role, enhancing spell range and body synergy. Sayuk snarled back, veins pulsing, refusing the truth. His ego cracked louder than the mana tearing through him. Hyul adjusted his stance, green light wrapping around him as internal circuits aligned with magical rhythm. He analyzed mana flow mid-battle, reshaping inner structures, experimenting with magic circles, acceleration paths, and body response. Even from corrupted sources like illegal chips and berserker serum, he extracted insight for rapid development. Lifting his hand, Hyul released blue energy upward, intent sharpened, technique stabilized, and resonance finally reached completion. Hyul extended his arm, unstable mana surging, reacting wildly to the mysterious glyphs etched midair. As ancient forces stirred, the arcane resonance triggered a binding sequence buried deep within his bloodline. The spellbook awakened, emitting celestial lights. Within its pages, truths of lost eras began to unfold. Memories not his flickered fragments of a life forgotten, skills unclaimed, and promises bound by ancient oaths. Time stilled. With power restored, Hyul now faced the beginning of a fate written long before birth. Hyul hesitated, knowing his next move would lock the mana. Every mistake could prove fatal now. Above the battlefield, he analyzed positions and terrain, weighing risks as his enemies swarmed with intent. Calculations complete, he stabilized his core. The 3-minute resonance was brief, but more than enough. Energy surged through his limbs. With precise footing and breath control, Hyul triggered the ground-binding seal. Columns burst upward, crushing enemies mid-charge. One survivor staggered, caught in shock as his men were felled. The enemy trembled in disbelief, recognizing the third circle magic, something Hyul was never supposed to use. Calm and composed, Hyul analyzed the outburst, already anticipating the reckless strike about to come. Flames raged toward him, wild and furious, but his stance remained unmoved, waiting for the moment. Noticing the flawed casting, Hyul smirked. His opponent relied on brute force, lacking control and deeper understanding. With swift motion, Hyul summoned a water shield, neutralizing the fire spell as steam erupted skyward. Driven by rage, the enemy launched another fire spell, convinced this time Hyul couldn't block it. Hyul calmly shaped a vortex shield, tightening its spiral with flawless control over surrounding mana particles. Confused, the attacker realized too late that his fire spell had vanished before even reaching Hyul. Hyul's aura surged brighter, effortlessly deflecting ambient energy, leaving no room for foreign spells to breach. As his enemy staggered, burned and trembling, Hyul stepped forward, untouchable beneath his perfected defensive layer. The man laughed manically, mistaking fear for clarity, as his trembling hand barely held energy. Backpedaling frantically, he shouted claims of sudden understanding, desperation clinging to his every motion. Delusional, he blamed Hyul's power on forbidden doping, refusing to believe strength could come through will. Hyul stood silently, unshaken. His calm presence contrasted the chaos, signaling the end without a word. Stepping forward into a swirling pool of energy, Hyul let judgment fall, cold and absolute. Hyul cast darkness bind, enveloping the enemy in shadows that pulled him into an abyssal void. Panic spread across the man's face as the ground vanished, his feet trapped by binding tendrils. Hyul watched with cold eyes, knowing hesitation would have cost him everything in this deadly confrontation. Inside the void, the man screamed, lost in darkness, his senses severed from the physical realm. Still defiant, he shouted into the emptiness, demanding Hyul face him, but no one answered his cries. Hyul unleashed Earthbind and Airbind together, layers of magical force wrapping tightly around his foe. Chains constricted every joint, suspending the man midair, his movements nullified by the complex binding pattern. He gasped in shock, recognizing the advanced technique binding spells fused from multiple elemental disciplines simultaneously. Hyul stepped forward, voice calm. He declared the final mercy a quick and painless end. Raging, the man screamed defiance, blaming fate. Huel remained unmoved, knowing his words came far too late. Huel appeared beside him in the void, calmly accusing him of always blaming others for failure. He explained why illegal boosters were avoided not because of rarity, but the brutal side effects. Chains tightened as Huel subtly adjusted mana flow, triggering pain points the drug-enhanced body couldn't handle. The enemy screamed as Huel demonstrated precise control, tuning frequency to exploit the artificial enhancements. Overwhelmed by pain, the man's defiance collapsed into sobbing pleas, his breath ragged, hope nearly extinguished. Huel explained the AI and body had already surpassed their thresholds. Internal collapse was now inevitable. The enemy convulsed violently under strain, body tearing apart as Huel stood still and observant. In a soft tone, Huel thanked him not for what he was, but what he triggered. Laughing coldly, Huel mocked the idea of redemption, declaring the situation far beyond repair or reason. As Huel delivered the final strike, energy surged, ending the threat that once called him weak. The corrupted mana core ruptured violently, unraveling the enhanced body in a final unstable collapse. Ash and fractured energy dispersed quietly across the pavement. Huel stood still, watching the aftermath settle. As silence returned, a faint buzzing noise drew his attention downward to a fallen device. He picked up the phone, paused, then accepted the call with a composed, measured breath. Huel reported the outcome calmly. His voice steady, he addressed his father as the call connected. Huel calmly spoke into the phone, revealing he knew he'd been watched the entire time. The forest eyes glowed red, an unseen observer, hidden, yet clearly present during the entire confrontation. Despite the chaos, no authorities or students had appeared, something far too strange to ignore. Huel reasoned aloud, noting only one person would let the situation unfold without stepping in. He met her in secret, bound by family restrictions. She watched, but could never interfere. In a high-rise office, a figure acknowledged Huel's actions, claiming everything had gone according to plan. Huel sensed something off as the line went silent, a disturbance creeping in through the shadows. Footsteps approached methodically. A masked agent emerged, clad in black, red eyes glowing beneath the hood. The voice confirmed the worst Sekhion had been deployed. A new threat now hunted Huel. Huel spotted the hooded group from the shadows, their target already on the ground, barely conscious. He stayed hidden behind the bushes, watching them move, his fingers trembling but never reaching for help. Huel stepped forward silently, knowing any action now would reveal what he'd truly become inside. He decided to prove his growth using forbidden knowledge to imitate the third circle magic without hesitation. Inside, he admitted the truth: the power wasn't his, but the bluff had already taken root. Huel admitted to himself that borrowed strength alone wasn't enough to protect what truly mattered. Now, he feared exposure. If they knew the truth, the family's retaliation would crush him without hesitation. Using layered illusions and silencing spells, he cloaked the scene before anyone else could intervene or notice. His voice steady, he acknowledged the call, analyzing tone, waiting judgment, while reinforcements quietly approached his location. Call ended. Huel exhaled, alone again. For now, survival was the only thing he could control. Sekhion stayed silent, lips curled. Huel's bluff hadn't escaped his notice, but it intrigued him deeply. He burst into laughter, amused by Huel's bold deception, impressed that someone dared pretend against their bloodline. Huel's calm facade cracked slightly as an all-too-familiar voice echoed through the air, cold and deliberate. The cloaked figure stepped forward with glowing eyes. An old guardian once trusted, now possibly hunting him. Huel straightened, heart steady. Enemies or allies, he couldn't tell yet, but he was ready to act. Sekhion assessed the bruises with practiced eyes. Quietly impressed, Huel was still standing upright. A pulse of green light stitched wounds together just enough to hold him until professional care arrived. Huel nodded politely, concealing pain. Trust had limits, but this favor bought him a brief shield. The cleanup crew ensured silence, removing bodies and traces. Tonight's incident wouldn't reach the outside world. Underneath a cold, starlit sky, the building stood tall, its secrets locked behind glass and shadows. Huel stumbled inside, cursing under his breath. The pain returned quickly once adrenaline began wearing off. He froze, spotting damage and an intruder's signature. Nothing valuable was stolen, but something worse had arrived. A figure emerged from the shadows, eerily calm, as if this ambush were merely a meeting. Huel stayed alert, assessing the stranger's intent, wondering if he'd just walked into a new trap. The man smirked beneath the hood, revealing knowledge, affiliations, and failures Hyul hadn't realized others were tracking. Blood dripping, Hyul lashed out, enraged. The intruder mocked him, but still hadn't struck directly. Hyul's frustration boiled his oath to stay strong, mocked by his trembling hands, and another humiliating encounter. The masked man chuckled carelessly, treating failure like routine, his tone too calm for someone so dangerous. With the deal collapsing, he spoke casually of payment, clients, and silencing leaks with efficient practice cruelty. A grin widened under the hood. Hyul wasn't meant to last through the night, and they knew. Hyul turned away coldly, distancing himself from guilt. Sentiment had no place in tonight's brutal reality. The masked man reported indifferently, chips, tech enhancements, berserker state, another manipulated life sacrificed for someone's objective. Hyul's expression tensed. Brain dead, that meant the boy was already gone, body moving without willpower. Far below, under moonlight, two strangers escorted the limp body, now a breathing shell, robbed of thought. Cloaked in shadows, the informant confirmed its side effects had erased everything human. Only a weapon remained. Hyul wiped blood from his face, eyes sharp. The only thing that mattered now was Hyul. The informant hesitated, dodging clarity. His vague replies only sharpened Hyul's anger and deepened the tension. Hyul's fist clenched, confirming Hyul 1 wasn't enough. He needed to know what price had been paid. The agent laughed again, admitting truth with amusement. Hyul had defeated a berserker, and that fact terrified him. Yet something felt wrong. The ambush wasn't clear. Was it an assassination, a test, or both? Despite the layers of deception, Sakhyun had acted fast, erecting wards before anyone noticed the attack. The masked observer hadn't witnessed the full battle but felt Sakhyun's interference shift its outcome. Hyul questioned the implications, wondering if a deeper force, the shadow, had been hiding behind recent events. He pressed further, seeking clarity on when Sakhyun began tailing Hyul without explicit orders. The answer remained vague. Hyul's separation from the client blurred loyalties, stirring darker forces into motion. Hyul froze, realizing Sakhyun led the shadow unit, an elite force tied directly to his father. Questions filled his mind. Why would someone of that rank act without orders? Something felt misaligned. He concluded cautiously it was time to pull back. Hyul's ties now risked far greater attention. The masked figure dismissed the chip's threat, assuring it would be erased before anyone could interfere. With no leverage left, Hyul accepted it. This encounter was over for now. He'd simply observe. The masked agent vanished into the night, leaving Hyul with lingering doubts and a heavy silence. Hyul stepped back into the room, collecting his thoughts. His next target was someone called Pengsmith. Outside, the city lights blurred beneath the agent's glide. Their next client awaited in secrecy. Hyul moved quickly, determined to erase any trace that Sakhyun might link to him. He prepared his magic. Disabling his home's defenses would be easy, but time wasn't on his side. Morning light washed over the academy, unaware of the silent chaos unfolding beyond its walls. A hidden message arrived by artifact, delivered discreetly to hands already tense with anticipation and dread. The moment Hyul read the contents, shock coursed through him. His instincts braced for deeper complications. Word spread quickly. Rangsmith had died suddenly. Whatever truths he carried, they were lost during that transport. Hyul sat frozen, mind racing. A sudden death wasn't coincidence, it was someone's calculated move, executed cleanly. Hyul leaned back, half expecting the outcome but not the complete lack of resistance that followed Rangsmith's death. He reviewed the situation calmly. No loose ends remained. Sakhyun likely sealed the matter efficiently. The vibration of his phone interrupted the silence. A message from father carried the next orders. Hyul exhaled slowly, decoding layers of meaning. Everything was happening faster now. His father was moving pieces. Sunlight warmed the floor. Hyul smiled faintly, unsure if it was relief or the calm before chaos. Hyul stood tall, tension gone. The crisis had passed, only one clear goal remained ahead now. He opened the announcement, eyes fixed. A new challenge was coming, the Academy Olympiad's global tournament. A confident grin spread across his face. No more hiding this time, he'd dominate the stage directly. Hyul stood firm, heart racing. Realization sinking in. His long-awaited moment had finally arrived at last. Staring at the screen, he confirmed the Academy's downfall. Everything had gone exactly as he'd predicted. Power surged around him. Ancient runes awakened, signaling the initiation of the forbidden spell once sealed away. He clenched his fist, feeling strength multiply. He had reached the threshold of his long-awaited transformation. Now within him, magic swirled fiercely, 3 circles stabilized. The lost knowledge of the ancients reawakened once more. A violent surge burst from Hyul's core. Magic and fire spiraled, tearing through the chamber walls. The ancient book exploded in light, pages burning as arcane energy violently erupted into the surrounding room. The world shifted, Hyul's vision faded. A cosmic gate opened, pulling him through with relentless, silent force. Consciousness wavered. His body floated, suspended in void. Energy danced across skin like shards of cold light. His breath caught. This realm pulsed with power. Whatever it was waiting just for him. Hyul entered the new domain. The environment pulsed steadily, cloaked in strange runes and quiet tension. From within the sphere, a woman appeared, poised and silent. Energy formed a protective barrier around her. She was Beta, designated examiner. Her purpose: guide, assess, and ensure the integrity of the test. Hyul analyzed the surroundings. The second phase appeared more complex. Layers of mana pulsed beneath the floor. Suspended in crystal light, the elemental prism awaited. Mastery of control would decide his progression forward. Beta warned him the exact nature of the trial would remain hidden until the test initiated fully. She added that, upon success, deeper secrets of the third circle would be immediately unlocked to him. Hyul listened, then frowned. The knowledge jump stretched across nearly 90 pages, far more than he expected. He reasoned the difficulty matched its reward. This challenge likely surpassed all basic skill or academic evaluations. Accepting the weight of it, Beta raised her hand. The second test was now beginning. As the space dimmed, Hyul raised his gaze toward the shifting light cascading from above. A familiar voice echoed through the void. It was his master, reaching him through the trial's mechanism. Hyul steadied his stance, listening closely. The next challenge would summon 100 complex magical circles. To proceed, he had to activate them all. No assistance, no delay, no margin for error. With resolve burning, Hyul unleashed his mana. The first circle ignited, spinning fiercely under his precise control. The instructions continued: harmonize the circle with mana flow. Once perfectly aligned, activation would occur naturally. Hyul braced himself. Speed mattered now. The moment a pattern formed, he had to react instantly. Each circle had a strict time limit, only 1.5 seconds to activate before the entire test reset. Worse, the order wasn't fixed. Every attempt reshuffled the sequence, demanding full comprehension rather than repetition. Hyul exhaled slowly. This wasn't about memory, it was about instinct, mastery, and precision forged through real growth. Focused and determined, Hyul sharpened his senses. The challenge was real, and hesitation would cost him. Mana surged through his arms. He synchronized with the circle's flow, initiating the test's first real attempt. Elsewhere, the world continued undisturbed. Sky and city remained oblivious to the ancient trial underway. Back at the academy, a mysterious book pulsed faintly. Unseen forces stirred quietly behind locked drawers. A student jolted awake. His eyes narrowed as unsettling energy seeped into the room around him. After hours of effort, Hyul sighed. His progress was slow, 10 circles in 8 full hours. He sat back, reflecting. Despite exhaustion, something had shifted. Control was becoming more natural with repetition. Looking out the window, he considered alternatives. If brute focus wasn't enough, he needed guidance clues. Elsewhere, another student stirred. His senses tingled faintly, drawn by something he couldn't yet understand or name. A voice echoed faintly. The book was just one source. Other tomes could offer more insight. Hyul's heart quickened. The revelation confirmed that Teps's book was only one of several hidden texts. He realized there would come a time when the other ancient books would become absolutely necessary. Yet, he knew nothing of their titles, locations, or even who currently held them in secrecy. Taking a break, Hyul walked into town. He hoped coffee might help him reset and think. But just outside the cafe, a voice called his name. A familiar face had suddenly appeared. Hyul and Apella sat together in the park. Tension eased as the breeze softened around them. They exchanged quiet recognition. Encounters had grown frequent, yet this one carried something unspoken between them. Hyul noticed fatigue in her eyes. Clearly she hadn't slept. The signs were impossible to miss. Apella admitted she'd been reading. Her interest had latched onto something complex, likely magical theory or application. She revealed a tidal space transfer magic. Hyul examined the page, intrigued despite its strange, misleading appearance. Apella leaned forward, eager. She insisted they read the paper together immediately, with no hesitation allowed. Hyul hesitated briefly, caught off guard by her sudden energy, then quietly began flipping through the contents. Apella sipped from her drink, eyes fixed on the page, her energy oddly contagious and calming. Hyul's attention broke momentarily. Her bag was filled with milk cartons, a strange detail that lingered humorously. As they read together, Hyul nodded slowly. The research was oddly fascinating, complex, but genuinely well-structured and clear. Hyul leaned back slightly, brows furrowed. Something about the paper's tone didn't sit right with him. He noticed it lacked a real conclusion, no final theory, no proven outcome. It ended unfinished. A sudden realization hit. The document wasn't just speculation, it cited works of someone he knew well. Stunned, he read it again. The source was unmistakable writings of Ray Bettner himself. Hyul's heart raced. These weren't random theories. This paper connected directly to the mythical archmage's original legacy. Hyul had sensed something. The writing structure was off, but certain patterns strongly echoed Bettner's magical framework. Cross-referencing notes, he saw it clearly. The phrasing, concepts, even diagrams mirrored Bettner's documented magical style. He questioned Apella, eyes sharp. The author wasn't just any researcher, it had to be someone significant. Apella finally answered. The paper's author was listed as Go Sang-jun, a name Hyul didn't recognize. Hyul searched his memory. No records, no affiliations, just a mysterious figure known only for theoretical contributions. Hyul found no other records. This was Go Sang-jun's only known paper in circulation or archive. He theorized the author might have vanished after criticism, an unfinished legacy buried by silence and neglect. Frustration rose. Was this truly all he could uncover as a student, bound by limited access? Determined, he made a call. If knowledge was blocked, he'd seek it through higher authority directly. At the peak of the Blue Magic Tower, the sun burned high as silence dominated its walls. Hyul's phone vibrated twice before he calmly reached for it, already expecting the incoming call. Inside the dusty library, a tired researcher groaned, lifting his head after hours lost in arcane texts. Hyul offered a proposition, his voice steady, knowing the potential of what he'd just uncovered yesterday night. The researcher froze, eyes widened. What Hyul mentioned wasn't theory anymore. It was something real, something dangerous. Hyul's voice was calm, but his gaze was serious. He had one goal: to locate someone. A cosmic aura stirred faintly in the air, signaling the weight of the journey ahead for Hyul. Arriving at Olivia Academy, Hyul observed the vast complex where ancient bloodlines and awakened talents collided regularly. Inside the training room, students sparred fiercely. Mana crackled, spells flared, and pressure filled the entire hall. Hyul raised his arm, unleashing power. His blast forced a shocked contender to block in pure panic. Hyul unleashed a rapid barrage of energy bolts, forcing his opponent to shield under growing pressure. The other student braced himself, teeth clenched, recognizing Hyul's control had surpassed any basic combat rule allowed. Calmly, Hyul stepped forward, neither rushing nor hesitating, as if everything was unfolding exactly as he intended. His opponent lunged, attempting to counter. The spell formations collapsed, unable to match the reinforced bounds Hyul controlled. Before he could recover, more threads of magic converged around him, pushing the duel closer to conclusion. His opponent's expression twisted in panic as Hyul's final strike broke through all layered defenses with precision. The explosion echoed. Hyul watched calmly, arms crossed, satisfied with the accuracy of his pressure-managed burst. Crouched within flickering shields, the other student trembled, barely holding form as his protective barrier cracked repeatedly. Hyul smiled faintly. He noted the survival effort and mocked lightly, while his opponent silently cursed everything. With magic depleted, the challenger stood again, fists clenched. He chose to fight using only physical strength. Hyul remained relaxed, confident his combat training would surpass the opponent's reckless desperation in close range. The other student lunged suddenly, aiming a clean strike, thinking Hyul's guard had opened for just once. Their shoulders collided. Hyul didn't retreat, he rotated smoothly, shifting weight and balance into a tight counter-grapple stance. In one clean motion, Hyul flipped his opponent, slamming him down hard onto the training room floor. Spectators around the arena froze, stunned by the sudden reversal and the loud impact echoing above them. Hyul stood casually, unbothered, observing the result of his throw like it was expected from training. His opponent remained grounded, gasping, still processing how easily Hyul adapted to both physical and magical pressure. Hyul assessed aloud. noting how relying on partial magic while grappling showed smart, disciplined tactical awareness. Bruised but standing, the other student changed, quietly acknowledging Hyul's unique dominance in both areas of combat. He wiped his mouth, muttered under breath, and admitted Hyul was effective but frustratingly ruthless in execution. Hyul smirked lightly but shrugged off the remark, his mind already shifting back toward his true objective. As they walked through the hallway, a question surfaced that immediately disrupted Hyul's casual, neutral expression. The opponent's smile widened. He'd observed Hyul's drive long enough to guess the truth behind his silence. Hyul paused, surprised. He didn't expect someone to uncover the reason behind his obsession with perfect execution. It wasn't victory alone they'd fought before. Hyul remembered losing, barely surviving, blocked by someone stronger at the time. They walked through the corridor in silence, the weight of ambition resting heavily on Hyul's shoulders. His opponent spoke bluntly hard truth. Hyul's current state wasn't enough to reach the level required for victory. Hyul listened carefully, hearing every word. He didn't flinch, but the reality was impossible to ignore. Caught mid-thought, Hyul blinked. His expression shifted, confirming that he understood the depth of the challenge ahead. The current frontrunner used 9-circle magic. Hyul's 2-circle limit meant the gap was wider than he imagined. Hyul accepted the truth his current limit would never be enough to challenge the champions of Olympiad. He recalled the theory book sealed with magical flames, its secrets linked to resonance and circle upgrades. But theory alone wasn't enough. He would need a true method to surpass the artificial resonance barrier. Only one person had ever managed it legitimately, Go Sang-jun. Hyul had no choice but find him. Following old data and hand-marked coordinates, Hyul arrived at an unfamiliar district, unsure if the lead was real. The agent finally responded, apologizing for delays. Locating one man had taken longer than any expected. Hyul processed the address silently. The sun dipped low as he reached the marked destination alone. Confused, he stared at the building, an old bookstore right beside the academy he'd attended for years. Shocked, he realized the elusive Go Sang-jun had hidden in plain sight under his nose. Inside, surrounded by ancient scrolls, Go Sang-jun quietly blended in, living among forgotten knowledge and magical debris. The ancient book's faded ink and symbols hinted at a technique Hyul had seen only once before. He wondered if its origin traced back here inside this seemingly insignificant, cluttered, second-hand bookshop. Stepping in, Hyul greeted the old man, his voice calm despite anticipation rising in his chest. The elder stood slowly, recognizing Hyul immediately. Time hadn't dulled his memory or his analytical gaze. With a smile, he mentioned Hyul's progress. Word had spread that the boy now wielded real magic. Hyul stood taller now, clearly healthier, offering respectful gratitude to the one who unknowingly changed his course. The old man waved it off, saying he'd only sold books. Hyul had done the rest himself. Still, Hyul insisted those books shaped his breakthrough. The elder chuckled, amused by Hyul's heartfelt sincerity. Curious now, the elder asked directly what brought Hyul back after all. This time in progress, Hyul revealed the reason he needed to meet Go Sang-jun, the mind behind a mysterious paper. Hyul explained calmly, detailing how he traced the theory's origin and confirmed Sang-jun's presence at the shop. He apologized for intruding but insisted this meeting was necessary. There was no other way forward now. The old man acknowledged the paper and finally agreed to the request without hesitation or further questioning. But just as Hyul expressed gratitude, the elder warned him meeting Sang-jun wouldn't guarantee any real answers. Hyul froze. Startled, he hadn't expected hesitation from someone who'd supposedly authored answers he'd been chasing all along. Hyul's breath caught. He didn't understand why wouldn't Sang-jun answer. When he had the key, the old man opened a wooden door slowly, instructing Hyul to follow deeper into the building's rear hallway. Hyul obeyed silently. The hallway narrowed as they passed into an older section seldom touched by customers. The guide stopped outside a dim room. He turned, voice low and pointed. Sang-jun stayed inside. Heart racing, Hyul approached, hesitated briefly, and called out the name he'd been chasing for so long. Hyul followed the stern guard through the quiet hallway, unsure of what he was about to face. The hallway stretched long and empty, Hyul's eyes fixed on the closed door at its end. The guard stopped just before the room. With a glance back, he nodded silently and stepped aside. Hyul's heart pounded heavily as he stepped forward. The name Sang-jin echoed sharply in his mind. A faint beeping came from inside. Something mechanical stirred, signaling Sang-jin's presence beyond the door. Tubes fed through Sang-jin's pale arm, the machines beeping steady like a clock measuring silence. Hyul entered the room slowly. The sight of the still body made his breath tighten slightly. Sang-jin's chest rose faintly, mechanical aid keeping him alive, suspended between time, memory, and an unseen choice. The guard's voice broke the silence. Firm and low, this broken figure was once his own son. They stood beside the bed quietly. The weight of unspoken stories pressed hard on Hyul's chest. Hyul turned to the man beside him, voice low but tense, needing to understand this tragedy. His gaze stayed on Sang-jun. That name now carried weight tied to something far beyond this room. Hyul sat beside him, stunned. The truth was heavy, far deeper than he had ever expected. The taboo was forbidden magic. Sang-jun engraved an ancient spell directly into his living consciousness. Hyul's eyes widened in shock. That kind of magic hadn't been used for generations until now. Hyul stared blankly. Sang-jun's act echoed his own tampering with the soul to alter destiny's course. His fist tightened. He didn't understand why Sang-jun risked everything, duplicating a path already proven deadly. The man's expression hardened. He knew Sang-jun's reasoning, desperation to restore failed magic that once defined greatness. Left with no viable route, Sang-jun engraved the formula, sacrificing his body to preserve his research. Hyul looked at Sang-jun again. The truth was clear, he had to finish what Sang-jun couldn't. Hyul studied Sang-jun's face, wondering how close the fallen mage had come to unlocking true mastery. Unspoken questions hung heavy. Hyul wondered if Sang-jun had touched the edge of Weitner-style magical theory. The man paused, regret in his eyes. He couldn't explain what Sang-jun might have shared himself. Hyul lowered his head slightly, apologizing for pressing too far. The burden of curiosity wasn't his alone. Later, in the library, Hyul's focus deepened. His passion for knowledge reminded the man of Sang-jun. The sky glowed with fading light, casting soft warmth across the quiet shelves of the archive. Hyul turned to the old man respectfully, finally ready to ask the question on his mind. He requested access to Sang-jun's research, hoping to uncover what truths the fallen mage left behind. The man considered it carefully. He agreed, but only under one condition, 2 requests to be exact. Sang-jun's name, though faded in body, must live on through words, even if only a mention. The man raised one finger, preparing to reveal his second and final condition before granting access. He warned Hyul sternly never channel mana into his brain recklessly, no matter the temptation or need. Startled but respectful, Hyul agreed instantly, aware that Sang-jun's downfall began with that exact fatal mistake. They entered a side room. Neatly arranged, Sang-jun's collection awaited, quiet, preserved, brimming with dangerous forgotten knowledge. Hyul paused. One book flickered faintly with a strange light. Something in it seemed to respond. The shelf creaked unexpectedly. A thick, worn book dislodged itself and fell toward Hyul's startled hands. He caught it just before it hit the ground. The cover pulsed faintly with magical resonance. Glowing patterns revealed themselves across its surface. It closely resembled the legendary Forbidden Book of Idzed. Hyul held it carefully and asked the man beside him if he recognized this mysterious artifact. The man nodded slowly. That was the book Sang-jun always carried, like it held something vital. The man gestured toward the book, urging Hyul to read, certain his answers would lie within. Hyul opened the book with care. The pages felt old but pulsed faintly with hidden power. His eyes widened. The handwriting was unmistakable. It belonged to the very master who trained him. Excited, Hyul asked if he could take the book. His enthusiasm broke through his usual calm. The man agreed without hesitation. Hyul thanked him deeply, unaware how far this path would lead. The book sat ominously on his desk. Its strange glow had not dimmed since their meeting. Hyul stared down at it, unease building. The shopkeeper had never stocked this kind of artifact. Above, stars drifted slowly. Hyul's questions multiplied with each silent hour under the empty night sky. The city was quiet, unaware that inside a single room, ancient magic had stirred once again. Alone, Hyul compared the books. Only one truly responded, as if waiting to be read by him. Hyul struggled to stay conscious. The dual surge from both books was tearing logic and space apart. Symbols ignited across the air. Hyul's body began lifting as magical pressure built from all directions. His eyes darted in confusion. No spell he knew could explain 2 books activating in unison. A voice spoke from the core, naming him as the rightful heir to the Book of Idzed. With no time to resist, Hyul's form was engulfed. Knowledge poured in, dragging him into fusion. A new name was spoken, the Book of Methir, an ancient artifact unknown to modern magical records. Hyul's vision blurred. The voice returned, echoing commands from his master, dragging him deeper into magical space. As he dissolved again, the book captured his form, binding the essence to ancient stored knowledge. The light faded. The book closed with a soft glow, now quiet on the table's surface. Moments later, energy pulsed elsewhere. In a distant chamber, a teleportation array flashed open without warning. A gentle tap landed on Hyul's neck. He froze, realizing he was no longer alone. Turning sharply, Hyul met unfamiliar eyes. Whoever she was, she had appeared without triggering any wards. She smiled playfully and declared his arrival. Hyul had entered the Book of Mimir, another realm entirely. A glowing message appeared. The book's name was Mimir's Codex, sealed and resting on the table. Text followed, offering boundless knowledge. A wave of light engulfed Hyul as the ritual activated. Instantly, he awoke on a strange floor. The room was vast, filled with books and glowing lines. Slowly standing up, Hyul looked around. Someone watched from behind a shelf, moving with delicate intention. He flinched as soft fingers tapped his neck. Someone had approached him silently without being noticed. Hyul sat peacefully until a soft thud hit his shoulder, jarring his senses without warning. She appeared suddenly, floating gently before him, smiling sweetly while holding a glowing invitation scroll. Bright light consumed everything as Hyul's surroundings vanished, pulled into a swirling portal of energy and stars. Hyul awoke on a strange platform beneath stained glass light, confused by the girl's cheerful stance. She giggled playfully, revealing herself as Care, administrator of this realm, welcoming Hyul to his awakening. Care extended her hand, eyes gleaming, officially welcoming Hyul as the chosen successor of this legacy. Hyul stood quietly, absorbing the name Animus, as glowing rings beneath his feet pulsed with magic. Kyra spun joyfully, declaring the library a gift from Rai Belvitainer to all future successors. Hyul's expression tensed slightly as he processed her words. This place wasn't ordinary, nor was its purpose. He looked around, skeptical. The space felt modest, not grand, too compact to be called a true library. Kyra explained calmly that Hyul's accomplishments were still modest, which limited the current scale of Animus. She clarified the library expanded with growth its size, reflecting the experience level of each chosen successor. Hyul guessed accurately that he hadn't reached the second trial, surprising Kyra with his quick perception. Pausing, Kyra asked shyly if they could speak more casually, instead of staying overly formal. Hyul blinked, caught off guard, as Carrie stepped closer and suggested they build a friendlier connection. Hyul smiled faintly, nodding in agreement. Accepting Kyra's suggestion, he relaxed for the first time. Kyra celebrated his response, then praised Hyul's natural ability, impressed he had already unlocked the library. Hyul remained unconvinced, unsure why gaining early access to difficult knowledge was considered a benefit. Kyra laughed, revealing that his gift allowed accelerated growth, no barriers until mastering the powerful fifth circle. Hyul's eyes widened, stunned. Kyra leapt into the air, magical energy spiraling as the truth unfolded. A thick, glowing book rose from its case, reacting to Kyra's activation with radiant crimson light. Kyra summoned it with magical precision, her eyes serious now, preparing Hyul for what came next. Hyul received the tome carefully. Kyra instructed him to read it. Answers would become clear inside. Flipping pages, Hyul's gaze sharpened. The book detailed the Oswald theory of resonance, deep, arcane, and powerful. Kyra explained the library housed advanced texts, knowledge far beyond what even Idre's codex could hold. Hyul pondered why such advanced knowledge wasn't stored directly in the main codex from the start. Kyra acknowledged the question with a nod, her tone shifting to one of instructional clarity. She explained that overwhelming content was removed to avoid burdening unqualified successors during their initial trials. Thus, Mimir's well existed separately, housing extended archives too vast for the codex's primary form. Realizing this, Hyul understood his master left condensed lessons in the codex, deeper ones here for growth. Hyul grasped the truth, every book in Mimir's well-held deep knowledge linked to his progress. Kyra confirmed enthusiastically, proud of his understanding and eager to guide him toward greater magical advancement. Hyul's confidence surged with this insight. He knew passing the second trial was now within reach. As he absorbed the book's energy, its pages shimmered, responding to his rising level of understanding. Suddenly, light enveloped him. Hyul's body lifted into the air, pulled into another dimensional transition. Hyul steadied his breath, aware that mastering the synchronization of circles required precise magical control. Now preparing for the second trial, he initiated the process of aligning his core with 10 circles. It once demanded hours of work, every attempt exhausting, the arcane flow painfully difficult to stabilize. But after training inside Mimir's well, his understanding deepened, achieving a full merge in one session. With renewed resolve, Hyul believed he could push past limitations, maybe even complete 100 circles soon. Kyra unleashed a final surge of magic, stabilizing the transfer as Hyul's trial initiation completed. Securing access to Mimir's codex before official testing began was an unforeseen advantage in Hyul's journey. Night fell over the academy, silence blanketing the grounds as preparations quietly shifted behind closed doors. Footsteps echoed through the grand hallway. Hyul walked briskly, summoned without explanation to meet his father. Tension rose. Hyul wondered if it concerned the Black Skyluck incident or something more dangerous still. Hyul had intended to return to training, but the sudden summons disrupted his personal plans. A servant announced his presence. Despite confusion, Hyul approached the room of his powerful father. Entering, he greeted the man seated behind the grand desk, tension rising within his posture. His father addressed him bluntly, acknowledging that this time, Hyul's efforts had yielded significant measurable success. The results, combined with earlier Manastone data, revealed Hyul's growing potential couldn't be dismissed anymore. Hyul's father confirmed the earlier assessment, ready to offer a reward for the success Hyul achieved. He acknowledged that Hyul's efforts had yielded profit, so a meaningful return was now deserved. Leaning forward, he asked directly what Hyul wanted, curious to hear his son's personal ambition. Without hesitation, Hyul declared his wish to claim the ancient relic sealed within the family vault. His father looked skeptical, brushing it off as fantasy, dismissing relics as nothing more than antiques. Hyul firmly rejected the dismissive view. He believed ancient relics carried deeper meaning beyond common knowledge. He explained that even legends might hide truths, choosing to believe despite skepticism or ridicule. His father sighed, calling him naive, but accepted his conviction to chase what others called fantasy. Granting limited approval, he agreed Hyul could choose one item only, no more than a single relic. Grateful, Hyul smiled. With full resolve, he prepared to reveal exactly what item he would claim. Within the heavily secured treasure vault, a single relic lay dormant, untouched by time or purpose. Encased in glass, the ancient robe radiated faint energy, its significance forgotten by most of the family. Hyul faced it confidently, his eyes unwavering. He had chosen Raybel Bytainer's robe without hesitation. Inside the divine family's vault, Hyul walked calmly, knowing the heirloom he sought lay ahead. An elder presented the sealed tome with reverence. Hyul's hand hovered, steady but filled with purpose. He accepted the book without hesitation, committing himself to the path the others deemed impossible. Hyul smiled not from arrogance, but from certainty as he carried the ancient magic within his grasp. Behind him, whispers of disbelief followed, yet Hyul's steps never faltered toward the fate he'd chosen. With the book clutched tight, Hyul accepted the warning, his path now bound to training. He left the vault in silence, the cold wind outside matching the weight of new responsibility. Inside the moving car, he sat alone, mind swirling with names and stories once forgotten. Hyul studied the cover rows of Ribble Bittner, a title both mysterious and burdened with dangerous legacy. He stared at the sunset, knowing doubt would come, but his conviction must burn stronger still. Hyul's hand trembled as he opened the tome, its pages humming with locked magical presence. A sudden pulse jolted through him, the symbols within awakened, choosing Hyul as their new vessel. Ribbons of power wrapped around him, guiding, measuring, unlocking layers of potential his bloodline had never accessed. From the radiant swirl emerged Aman Fiber, a soul of legacy, suspended in dimensional silence. She extended a hand as memories of war, trials, and knowledge flooded into Hyul without restraint. Hyul analyzed the robe's energy patterns, confused how ancient magic surpassed today's advanced enchanted technology completely. His mind raced with questions. No known artifact from modern times matched this strange woven brilliance. The sky turned calm above the academy as Hyul sat alone, mind burdened with revelations. He noticed worn letters stitched inside the robe, familiar, shaky handwriting burned into his memory forever. A quiet smile formed, That clumsy signature proved everything. This robe once belonged to his late master. Hyul raised the robe, puzzled by its weight and movement. Something hidden altered its balance completely. He studied the weave carefully, discovering inner and outer layers constructed with distinct magical intent. The robe's inner core enhanced mana flow, while its shell blocked overflows, preserving stability in battle. Realization struck his master's craftsmanship wasn't flawed. The true enchantment had been cleverly folded and disguised. Turning the robe inside out, Hyul triggered a response. Mana symbols lit beneath his fingertips instantly. Even inside out, the robe's structure stayed flawless proof. Its magical design was deeply embedded throughout. Hyul concluded it was no accident someone crafted it this way with precise magical reasoning. He questioned its origin, suspecting now that this robe might be an artifact from a forgotten age. Standing alone, he finally understood why such a treasure was discarded. It frightened those who misunderstood it. Far elsewhere, a sealed book burst open with light, triggering ancient spells beneath a summoning circle. Hyul entered the chamber, startled to see Mimir awake, still clutching a book in surprise. Recognizing him instantly, Mimir leapt from her seat, eyes wide as she noticed the robe. Her expression shifted to shock. She recognized the garment's aura and the markings woven into its threads. Hyul steadied her, unsure what to explain. Her reaction confirmed this robe held powerful buried secrets. Mimir called it Ray's robe, but Hyul sensed something altered within. Its magic didn't match past descriptions. Mimir carefully inspected the robe, her fingers brushing the fabric as concern crept into her gaze. She paused, scanning its magical resonance. Something inside unsettled her, something she couldn't immediately identify or explain. Turning to Hyul, she questioned his magic level, confirming he hadn't advanced beyond the third circle. Realizing his limitations, Mimir backed off, deciding it was dangerous for him to uncover deeper truths. With a firm stance, she refused further explanation. Whatever the robe held, it was beyond Hyul now. Hyul protested Mimir's refusal, confused by her decision to reject the robe without proper explanation. She hesitated, reconsidered briefly, then chose to return the robe, her thoughts growing visibly uneasy. As she examined it again, she muttered something about Bettner-style magic and a forgotten special spell. Struggling to recall, she clenched her head in frustration. Its name evaded her memory completely. Then suddenly, her voice sharpened. She remembered. The spell was called True Magic, a signature of Bittner's lineage. Hyul froze upon hearing True Magic, uncertain how it differed from the spells he already mastered. Mimir explained calmly it wasn't fake, but what he used so far wasn't the real essence. He felt insulted, but Mimir confirmed it bluntly. His current level lacked the core principle of authenticity. She added that details about true magic were sealed until he reached a specific magical tier. Cheerfully, she revealed the robe itself was an artifact made solely to handle and amplify true magic. Hyul gripped the robe firmly and asked what level was required to understand its full purpose. Mimir hesitated, then raised her hand sharply. Fifth circle was the minimum threshold to unlock its secrets. She emphasized that mastering fifth circle wasn't optional, it was the gateway into the robe's function. With certainty, she declared Beitner-style magic truly began only when one entered the fifth magical tier. A sealed grimoire floated midair, glowing faintly, as ancient energy pulsed through its slowly turning pages. Hyul stood within the magical circle, lifting his hand. Symbols flared. The countdown began. 98. With the circle fully activated, arcs of mana surged outward. Hyul's body vibrated as numbers climbed. 99. Flashes exploded around him. His stance held firm. Light engulfed everything as the final number struck 100. He smiled, hand raised. A voice echoed above him, confirming what he knew: he had succeeded. The voice echoed once again, declaring the final step. Hyul raised the book with purpose. Energy patterns lit the air. The third circle, source, and infinity code formed symbols around him. Hyul sensed the change instantly. Something blocked the process. His expression stiffened. A foreign interference had arrived. Time shifted. Hyul awoke abruptly, gasping. The grimoire rested in his lap, worn and heavy. He sat upright in silence, gripping the book. A warning glowed. Now it's time to choose. Hyul reflected silently. Without the robe and Muke's book, the previous trial would have delayed him greatly. The book from Muke shimmered in memory. That night, its pages unlocked secrets of the fifth test. Instructions appeared usable only once Hyul became a master of the fifth circle and passed its trial. In the orthodox tradition, True mastery was recognized only after transcending the base limits of magical circles. Hyul sighed and turned away. The power would wait until he reached the sixth circle on his own. Hyul asked about the robe's purpose. The girl replied, warning him not to waste its strength. She explained its layered mana weave was rare. It wasn't for appearance, it served a real function. With a smirk, she twirled the robe. Its glow intensified as she activated its hidden enchantment. She clarified the robe stored and stabilized mana, preventing loss while amplifying internal circulation and saturation levels. Hyul listened carefully. She added that enhanced mana flow eased brain strain and physical fatigue during casting. Hyul lit up with realization. Wearing the robe might reduce sleep needs through mana retention efficiency. She tilted her head, amused. She clarified the robe actually eliminates the need for sleep. Hyul was shocked. She confirmed wearing it just 5 hours a day keeps the body fully recovered. She explained further no fatigue, full focus, sustained magical output. The robe maintains peak physical and mental condition. Hyul grinned confidently. If this was only a side effect, the robe's true ability must exceed expectations. Hyul smiled with determination. He had one goal now, mastery of the fifth circle without further delay. He acknowledged the robe's danger to others. For anyone but the successor it would be fatal. 2 days passed. Hyul meditated in silence, the robe wrapped tightly around him, aura quietly surging inward. He opened his eyes slowly. Mana swirled behind his gaze. His concentration had sharpened with every session. Sitting cross-legged, Hyul reflected. He was close, one step from breaking interference, but something still held him back. Interference surrounded the room. Hyul opened the book again, scanning notes from the previous owner's experiment. He studied the third circle of Byron's magic, revealing synchronization power between two different mana flows. For this connection to succeed, a mage must fully align their mana with the target's essence. Hyul realized what interference truly meant, a forced resonance with another's mana. He found the concept fascinating. He smirked. Synchronization had once seemed random. Now he understood this test demanded intent, focus, and acceptance. To weave the third ring, Hyul studied the ritual steps carefully, preparing his mind for synchronization. He must match both the ring's formation and ambient mana, aligning them with flawless magical precision. Hyul's eyes narrowed. The challenge was clear: complete synchronization, no error, or the attempt would fail. He raised the book with confidence. This time there would be no hesitation, only focus and execution. Mana saturated the room. Hyul floated midair as threads of light circled him, seeking harmonic union. Hyul's body floated in stasis. With each breath, more mana surged and wrapped tightly around him. Circles formed across the void. Mana condensed like threads, linking together as his inner core absorbed rapidly. He remained still, letting the resonance stabilize. Each ripple drew him closer to the core connection. His expression softened. This wasn't pain or pressure, it was freedom, flowing through his veins without resistance. The mind space opened. Hyul drifted upward as his thoughts awakened, forgotten echoes from lives long gone. Hyul furrowed his brow. Something felt wrong. The mana wouldn't anchor fully despite the powerful absorption stream. He realized the amplification rate was too high. Mana scattered before settling deep inside his core. By adjusting his breath, he lowered the flow intensity. Gradually, the resonance between circles became smoother. Mana swirled in formation. Hyul floated midair as the third ring formed, glowing with pristine clarity. The ritual ended. Morning sunlight spilled through the window as Hyul collapsed quietly, body fully spent. Hyul gasped and looked skyward. The mana storm had passed. Morning warmth returned to his skin. He stood tall and whispered to himself the trial was complete. His body felt changed. Without hesitation, Hyul reactivated his circuits. Blue sparks pulsed as he summoned the first circle into motion. Energy danced along his frame. The second circle emerged stable and resonant, synced to his refined core. With a clenched fist, he declared it silently. He was ready to reach for the third. Hyul raised his arm. The third infinity circle formed completely, vibrating as interference surged around him. The battle begins with Shin Hyul unleashing his powers, confident in his abilities. Magical energies swirl around him as he prepares to face the challenge ahead. A flash of light cuts through the atmosphere, signaling the intensity of the power being released. With a smirk on his face, Shin declares the interruption is over, ready to step into the next phase of the fight. The scene shifts to a peaceful environment. Shin relaxes against a tree, contemplating the upcoming survival exam. The exam is taking place across a vast mountainous area in Gangwon province. The conditions are harsh. Equipped with a special artifact, every student is ready for the challenge. Shin prepares himself mentally, realizing the difficulty ahead. His survival is at stake, and the battle will only get tougher. As the test begins, he faces both wild creatures and competitors. He must outsmart and outlast them all. While keeping his wits sharp, a burst of magical fire flares up, signaling the start of a deadly confrontation. Shin uses his powers. Shin's opponent is ready to challenge him. As the two face off, their eyes lock, and the tension builds. The fight escalates as they exchange blows. Shin's agility and magic counter his adversary's attacks, but the battle isn't over yet. A powerful barrier appears, clashing against Shin's magic. The interference is unexpected. The clash intensifies as Shin powers through the barrier. His opponent is visibly shaken by the unexpected strength of his attack. Shin's eyes glow with determination as he advances, leaving his adversary struggling to keep up. The power shift is evident. The final blow is delivered as Shin's magic breaks through the opponent's defense, sending him flying. Shin Hail, standing victorious, questions his opponent's ambush. He smirks, feeling the power of his strategy as the battle rages on. He remarks on the absurdity of shouting, while attacking, finding his opponent's style more comical than threatening. A flash of realization hits Shin. The power he's facing is far stronger than he anticipated. The interference magic is undeniable. Shin begins to weaken his opponent's defense by targeting the core of the magical barrier. He aims precisely. His focus is unwavering as he unleashes a powerful attack, creating a destructive force that shatters his opponent's defense. The opponent is knocked back, and Shin quickly assesses the situation. He now holds an advantage. After his victory, Shin checks his score. A satisfied grin appears on his face, knowing he's gained valuable points. The scoreboard reflects Shin's success, marking him as a top contender. However, he remains alert. As he walks confidently, Shin begins to consider how his interference magic might prove useful in the next phase of the test. A sudden explosion of energy catches Shin off guard, signaling the arrival of new threats. He braces himself. The source of the explosion is revealed, a group of aggressive beasts. Now closing in on him, Shin quickly evaluates the situation. He realizes that the beasts have been attracted by the chaos of the battle. Their presence complicates his situation. Shin grins as he faces the approaching beasts. Despite the odds, he feels confident, knowing he can use his magic to turn the tide. With a swift motion, he releases a powerful spell, creating a radiant barrier of light to protect himself. Shin's laughter echoes as he stands tall, unleashing his full magical potential. He is no longer just surviving. He's taking control of the situation. The action pauses as Shin's movements are observed from a distance. On a screen, his every action is being analyzed by a group of figures watching intently. The viewers comment on the outstanding performance of the students, including names like Ji Sung-chan and Kim Kang-soo. The group acknowledges the remarkable progress of the students, with an emphasis on Shin Hail. As the competition progresses, the observers discuss how the top contenders, including Shin, are handling the trials with ease. A confident laugh echoes in the room as the discussion shifts toward the challenges ahead. The conversation turns toward Shin once again. It's clear that he's a standout competitor, with his growing reputation casting a shadow over the other participants. One of the instructors, intrigued by Shin's success, begins to question his true potential. Shin's past performance has made a lasting impression. His ability to handle even the toughest situations with ease has placed him firmly in the spotlight. The instructor notes that, despite Shin's incredible abilities, he was previously dismissed as incompetent. As Shin continues to prove himself, the ranking system reflects his dominance. His score keeps climbing. The observers are impressed as they note how Shin's deep understanding of his enemies, like the Bloodclaw wolves. His strategy is not just about defeating the wolves, it's about manipulating the environment to create opportunities and boost his score. With each challenge, Shin moves closer to the top. He considers the path ahead and wonders if he will reach the elusive 60-point mark with his current performance. Despite the odds, Shin remains composed, his focus unwavering. As the competition intensifies, Shin's resolve hardens. His next steps will determine whether he can maintain his lead. Shin notices something unsettling beneath his feet as the ground starts to shift. A moment of confusion grips him as he realizes the terrain is changing. A massive energy surge erupts around Shin, revealing the source of the disturbance. It's a powerful magical creature. As the creature's massive form rises, Shin's face breaks into a confident smile. He's ready for the next challenge. A towering structure of shimmering blue crystals rises before Shin Hyul. The glistening formation catches his attention as he prepares for the test ahead. Shin observes the crystal structure intently. His expression reveals a mix of excitement and determination. With a confident smirk, Shin steps forward. He knows the challenge that awaits, but he is ready for it. The scene shifts to Obelisk Academy. In the observation room, a group of professionals watches through large windows as the evaluation continues. A man in a suit speaks calmly, explaining the significance of the test. He details the emerald turtle. The creature is noted for its powerful defense, a true challenge for magicians. Shin's ability to face it head-on is critical for his progress. The emerald turtle, with its crystal-covered shell, looms large. Its tough, nearly invulnerable defense makes it a feared foe for any magician. Classified as a Grade C monster, it specializes in negating magic. Shin stands resolute, knowing this monster could be his toughest challenge yet. He braces himself for battle. Shin's attack clashes against the emerald turtle, sending shards flying. The battle intensifies as both combatants push their limits. Shin evades the creature's retaliatory strike. He knows capturing it will reward him with massive points. His excitement grows as he presses on, every move calculated for success. The stakes are high, and Shin's resolve is unwavering. Shin raises a barrier to shield himself from a devastating blast. The emerald turtle's attacks grow fiercer by the second. Shin leaps into the air using his barrier as a foothold to dodge. The agility he displays is crucial in evading the turtle's powerful strikes. In the observation room, experts comment on Shin's performance. They note that the emerald turtle is a formidable opponent. Shin Hyul summons Vulcan Flame, sending an explosion of fiery energy toward the emerald turtle. Charging ahead, Shin races forward as the flames rage around him. His eyes gleam with anticipation. However, the emerald turtle withstands the full force of the flames without flinching. Shin's heart sinks as he realizes his attack has done no damage at all. Momentarily stunned, Shin halts in his tracks. His mind racing, the emerald turtle proves to be far tougher than he anticipated. Its movements are unnervingly fast, far quicker than Shin expected for such a heavily armored creature. A troubling thought crosses Shin's mind. Could the turtle be using mana in its body to enhance its speed and power? Determined not to give up, Shin analyzes the situation carefully. He knows that new tactics are needed if he hopes to defeat this formidable foe. After a brief pause, Shin decides to switch tactics. His focus sharpens as he prepares to test a new spell that could give him an edge. Concentrating, he enhances his leg strength, preparing to move faster than the turtle. Speed will be his key advantage in avoiding its powerful strikes. With newfound speed, Shin braces himself as the emerald turtle charges. Its massive crystal body gleams. Thanks to his enhanced strength, Shin moves with agility, evading the turtle's dangerous blows. Suddenly, Shin leaps into the air, unleashing a burst of wind. The force of the attack causes the emerald turtle to stumble. As the turtle regains its footing, Shin prepares for the decisive blow. Gathering all his magical energy, Shin channels it into his next strike. With a fierce cry, Shin releases the accumulated power, unleashing a concentrated attack. The emerald turtle staggers under the force. Shin recalls a moment from his childhood, where he remembers reading about a creature like the emerald turtle in a picture book. As he analyzes the emerald turtle, Shin realizes that after its charge, it temporarily becomes immobile, due to pressure on its joints. With a determined expression, Shin seizes the moment. He prepares to strike, knowing this is the perfect time to attack. In the observation room, officials watch the battle unfold, their eyes wide with shock as Shin unleashes his next move. A loud voice calls out, ordering the activation of interference. The officials are worried about the outcome. The interference is triggered, but the emerald turtle remains vulnerable for now. Shin presses on, unfazed by the challenge posed by the officials. With a triumphant look, Shin sees the turtle falter. His attack has worked, and the emerald turtle begins to show signs of weakness. Shin smiles. His victory imminent, he finally overpowers the mighty creature, breaking through its defense with his powerful spell. The battle ends. Shin stands victorious, having successfully captured the emerald turtle. In the midst of the battle's aftermath, Shin relaxes, feeling the rush of victory. The fight was harder than expected, but it paid off. He checks the system's results and smiles. His hard work has earned him the points he aimed for. Shin grins widely. Satisfied with the outcome, he looks forward to the next challenge. The scene shifts to the mansion of the magic god. The environment is serene, a stark contrast to the intensity of Shin's battle. Inside, people are gathered around a screen, watching Shin's victory. Discussions about his progress begin. One person remarks about Shin's resourcefulness, acknowledging his judgment. Another agrees, recognizing his strength in overcoming the challenges he faces. The head of the family is asked why Shin Hyul has been so bold lately. The question stirs a brief moment of contemplation. A knowing look crosses the family head's face as he explains the reasons behind Shin's behavior. The family head explains that Shin's strategy involves using his connections and cunning. Shin's backstory is explored, revealing how his exclusion from family competitions in the past left him in a weak position. In the past, Shin was seen as a misfit, with magic being restricted and his family status in decline. Shin's newfound strength is evident as he now possesses significant magical abilities. His rapid progress has been noticed. During his training, Shin seeks to build strength, focusing on rapid growth to rise above his past limitations. His actions are part of a calculated effort to gain power quickly, knowing that his future depends on it. As Shin works hard to improve, the family head reflects on the boldness of his actions. He realizes that Shin is no longer the weak person he once was. Under a bright moon, the peaceful night contrasts with the crackling fire. Shin Hyul sits quietly by it, gazing at the sky and thinking. As he reflects on the training rules, Shin wonders how they restrict progress. The night air is calm. Shin acknowledges the need for safety, but he can't help but feel these restrictions stifle his potential. He begins to think about the changes that could improve the situation. Magic training could be more dynamic, without such strict rules holding them back. Shin smiles to himself as he recalls the benefit of his magical robe, which allows him to recover from fatigue quickly. Feeling better, Shin decides to eat, mentally preparing himself for the challenges ahead. The journey, he knows, is far from over. Suddenly, Shin feels a sharp discomfort. His body protests against the overexertion, and he groans, realizing he needs to take it slow. A familiar voice calls his name. It's Sunchan and Adela, who emerge from the forest, surprising Shin with their unexpected appearance. Shin greets them with surprise. Their appearance adds an unexpected twist to the otherwise quiet evening. The group gathers by the fire, with Shin asking how they ended up here together. Adela explains they were fighting until after 11 a.m., and after the fight, they ended up walking together. Shin laughs at how their rivalry led them to this moment, realizing it was an unintentional but amusing outcome. The group enjoys the moment, with the smell of food filling the air, lightening the mood. Shin jokes about the food, but Adela and Sunchan try to claim it for themselves. Despite the rivalry, they share a light-hearted moment, knowing that these connections are more valuable than the competition itself. Sunchan, clearly excited by the food, eagerly thanks Shin for the meal. The smell of the meat fills the air. Adela, also impressed by the delicious smell, takes a bite of the meat. Her expression shows that she's delighted by the flavor. Shin watches them both, smirking as he thinks to himself about the meat's origin. It's no ordinary meal. Adela wonders aloud if the meat comes from a honey bear. Shin, appearing slightly annoyed. He corrects her, revealing that the meat is from a honey bear monster that lives in the forest. Shin continues, explaining that only two monsters in the area are edible, the honey bear and the emerald turtle. Intrigued, Adela asks if Shin actually hunted an emerald turtle. Her tone suggests disbelief, as she knows how rare and difficult such creatures are to catch. Shin confirms her guess, admitting that he hunted the turtle during the day in the western part of the forest. She's still skeptical, commenting that she's only ever seen emerald turtles online and asking how he managed such a feat. Shin's response to the challenge is calm. He reveals that, with the right magic, it's possible to hunt such rare creatures. Adela looks even more impressed, realizing that the skill required to catch an emerald turtle isn't something everyone can accomplish. She praises him, acknowledging that Shin's magical prowess is indeed remarkable. Shin simply smiles, keeping his secrets close. The group enjoys the conversation, but Shin's sudden serious expression draws their attention. The air crackles with energy as Shin raises his hand, preparing for something intense. Suddenly, flames burst into existence, spinning into a massive whirl of fire. Sunchan and Adela stand in awe. Adela, eyes wide in shock, exclaims that Shin must have used 6 magic circles, a feat that's almost impossible. Sunchan, equally amazed, marvels at Shin's strength. His expression turns to admiration as he realizes how incredible Shin's magical abilities truly are. Shin tries to downplay the situation, revealing that he used only 3 circles, with the help of the master's magic. Curious, Sunchan asks how Shin managed to defeat the emerald turtle. Shin nonchalantly responds that he didn't target its head. Shin explains that the victory came from targeting the shell instead. He points out that it was a tactic that worked well. Adela and Sunchan exchange a look, still unsure if this makes sense. But Shin remains calm. The conversation takes another turn as Shin reveals that the event was broadcasted by the Academy's drone. Sunchan, still processing the information, asks if he can watch it immediately. Shin, with a smirk. Shin continues, assuring them that the footage will give them a chance to see everything in detail after the survival test is finished. The conversation shifts as Shin agrees that the fight will continue tomorrow. Adela, with a slight smile, teases Sunchan, remarking that there's no way he could defeat Shin. Sunchan, slightly annoyed, laughs it off, but deep down, he knows that defeating Shin is no easy task. Adela steps forward, determined to prove herself. She activates her magic, summoning a burst of energy that fills the air with a sense of power. As the magic swirls around her, Adela declares that she has something impressive to show. The magical aura she creates only increases the tension. The energy around her intensifies, signaling the start of a powerful magic display, setting the stage for the next phase of the survival test. Shin rushes forward, surrounded by a flurry of wind. His movements are fast, and the air shifts as he pushes ahead. He leaps into the air, swiftly evading his opponent's attack. The environment around him seems to blur as his speed becomes evident. With a focused expression, Shin contemplates the situation. He recognizes the importance of timing. The enemy quickly responds, realizing Shin's incredible speed. The opponent, now aware of his tactics, tries to keep up. The ground beneath Shin cracks as he dives to avoid an attack. He focuses on his next step, already thinking ahead about his counterattack. A roundhouse kick flies toward his opponent with incredible force. Shin's precise timing.
Morning light bathed the grand structure of Obelisk Academy, signaling the start of another competitive day. A muscular student, Ji Sanwook, stepped forward confidently. His sheer presence made the atmosphere tense. From the sidelines, admiration poured in. Sanwook's body enhancement magic impressed the spectators. Many whispered about his unrivaled standing in martial arts among second years. The evaluation shifted outdoors. Shin Hyul, facing Sanwook, activated his own enhancement magic, illuminating his limbs with glowing patterns. Their gazes locked. Both fighters understood the high stakes. One relied on brute power, the other on precise control of mana-infused strikes. Hyul readied his spell, channeling energy into his arm. With his magic active, he launched himself at his opponent to close the distance for melee combat. Sanwook welcomed the challenge with a smirk. To him, direct confrontation was a strength, not a risk. Inside the evaluation room, Academy instructors monitored the battle from their seats. The match drew attention as a showcase of advanced body enhancement. Discussion among evaluators leaned in Sanwook's favor. His proven skill gave him the edge at least. In theory, Sanwook's punches tore through the air, His combat experience, including victories in national competitions, made him a fearsome adversary. However, one observer raised doubts. Shin Hyeol's unusual abilities, witnessed during a prior trial, hinted at unpredictable power. Just as Sanwook attacked again, Hyeol activated his demon eye, scanning for weaknesses and anticipating movement. Sanwook narrowed his focus. He pinpointed Hyeol's mana flow and prepared to strike where energy clustered. Suddenly, the flow shifted. Mana redirected to Hyeol's knee, signaling a swift incoming kick. The strike connected. Though Hyeol blocked with a barrier, the weight behind Sanwook's attack still pressed him back, forcing him to reassess mid-battle. Shin Hyeol prepared a counterattack, aiming to drive his opponent back using force-enhanced precision. In an instant, his strike shattered Sanwook's defensive barrier entirely. Shock flashed across Sanwook's face as fragments of magic burst around him. Witnessing the overwhelming force, Sanwook realized he'd underestimated his opponent. The clean destruction of advanced defense magic hinted at a level rarely seen. The momentum shifted. With increasing excitement, Sanwook recognized the challenge and decided to fight with full strength. Although startled, he welcomed the pressure. His pride wouldn't allow him to lose in close quarters. Just as Sanwook braced, Hyeol closed in swiftly. Magic condensed around Hyeol's fingertips, and the next moment, Hyeol's attack met resistance. Sanwook managed to block the blast directly, stunning everyone, including the evaluators watching inside the academy. Hyeol followed up quickly, striking with a spinning kick. Sanwook dodged narrowly, revealing unexpected reflexes in a chaotic clash of motion. Though the counter was quick, Hyeol began to evaluate his opponent. Sanwook's instincts were sharp. A deceptive strike had been launched. Hyeol had masked his true intent behind a burst of flame, like magic, making Sanwook brace incorrectly. Despite deploying defensive spells, the resulting damage to Sanwook's arms was severe. Blood trickled down as the price for his misjudgment. Ignoring the pain, Sanwook charged again, eyes locked on his target. His speed increased an effort to close the gap and reclaim control. While Sanwook swung hard, Hyeol shifted smoothly. A calm breath escaped him as he anticipated the reckless approach. Analyzing the opening, Hyeol realized the flaw in his opponent's form. The force behind Sanwook's first punch had been a deliberate distraction. Reacting swiftly, Hyeol dodged the fake strike and countered with a fluid motion, enhancing his movement entirely with magic. Sanwook's arms trembled violently, pain coursing through them after repeated clashes. He clenched his fists, gritting his teeth through the burning sensation. Despite the damage, he refused to fall back. Tapping into his sheer resilience, he pushed through the agony with raw determination, shouting inwardly that he was still a fighter. Driven by instinct, he lunged forward with a ferocious punch. To him, retreat was never an option. Attacking was his nature, his creed. Hyeol observed the reckless charge calmly, warning that pushing strength without control would break one's body eventually. Sanwook roared, ignoring the warning. His foot launched upward, aiming to strike, trying to overpower his opponent with one decisive blow. Although momentarily stunned, Hyeol recovered fast and slipped into Sanwook's range, slamming a powerful counter straight into his jaw. The blow sent Sanwook sprawling across the field. Dust trailed his fall as he crashed into the ground with heavy force. Hyeol exhaled, stepping back with control. His opponent lay unconscious, body limp. But something felt off. In the split second before impact, Sanwook had channeled mana into his jaw to dampen the damage, revealing remarkable last-second survival instincts. Impressed, Hyeol acknowledged his rival's combat instincts. Even while falling, Sanwook had defended himself intelligently. Recognition of his opponent's dual capability, offense and defense, flashed in Hyeol's thoughts as the evaluation device awarded him points. With dusk falling and the match concluded, a new phase of the test began as the scene transitioned to a mystical forest under moonlight. Under the glow of the full moon, Hyeol scanned his surroundings. Only 3 participants remained in the trial. That number dropped immediately. As another competitor collapsed in the distance, Hyeol corrected himself. Only 2 remained. Now, a new presence appeared. A long-haired student emerged gracefully, offering a greeting as the air shimmered with magic, marking the start of a new encounter under the night sky. Under the moonlit sky, a magical pulse descends from above, piercing the clouds in a radiant stream of energy. From below, a young man named Shin Hyeol gazes at the phenomenon, while sensing an unusual presence disturbing the air. Scanning the area with sharp focus, he detects 2 incoming individuals, one of whom materializes in front of him in a surge of glowing light. Standing face to face, Shin Hyeol and the mysterious blonde woman observe each other in silence. tension settling between them. Moments later, the setting shifts to a modern tower lit beneath daylight, suggesting the transition to another scene. Inside, a screen broadcasts Hyel unleashing a powerful magic attack, which stuns onlookers in a room as they realize the magnitude of his abilities. A furious noblewoman protests Hyel's rapid rise, warning that continued progress could position him as a top successor. Despite her outrage, the man beside her remains quiet, offering no support, which increases her frustration. She demands answers, pointing to the crushed remains of the powerful emerald turtle that Hyel defeated alone, an act witnessed globally through live stream. The woman slams the table in anger, accusing her brother and others of remaining passive, despite Hyel's growing threat. Trying to de-escalate, the man urges her to calm down, but her panic only escalates as she spirals into anxiety. With growing fear, she realizes Hyel's dominance is real, and her brother's next words carry an ominous weight. He won't repeat himself again. Shaken and terrified, the woman stammers an apology, pleading to avoid punishment for her outburst. She promises to stay silent, hoping to escape her brother's wrath with submission. Surprised, the man questions her panic, gently placing a hand on her head while asking what she's so afraid of. Looking at his sister with a calm gaze, the man questions why she assumed punishment would come from him. He offers a sly smile, reminding her they are family, and that such thoughts are unnecessary between siblings. As she expresses gratitude, he shifts his attention, mumbling about Hyel's cunning nature and his ability to seize every opportunity without fail. Despite his composed tone, the man reveals his frustration at Hyel's success and his constant rise in power. A sudden explosion erupts in the battlefield as magic flares up, signaling the start of a new confrontation. The blonde warrior prepares herself mid-air, analyzing her opponent's style, while vowing to approach differently than before. Under the moonlight, magical energy swirls. As the duel resumes with heightened intensity, a barrage of spells is unleashed as the girl charges with precision and explosive force, aiming to overpower Hyel's defenses. Observing her from above, Hyel avoids the attacks narrowly, while recognizing her improved attack patterns and enhanced casting speed, focused and relentless. The girl continues her attack, launching wave after wave of spell projectiles. She admits that dodging this assault is virtually impossible for her opponent due to its overwhelming scope. With fierce determination, she declares her intent to surpass all of Hyel's strengths through force and pressure alone. Struggling to maintain composure, Hyel grits his teeth as the magic bombardment closes in. Rather than fear, he recognizes the technique being used, a straightforward yet forceful tactic driven by a single magic circle. Puzzled and unimpressed, he questions her claim of having analyzed his weaknesses, wondering what insight she actually gained. Adela lets out a confident laugh, convinced that mastering basic spell mechanics can elevate any combatant's effectiveness. She launches another assault as Hyel rapidly deflects the projectiles, but internally, he is alarmed by her improved precision and flow. Taken aback. He realizes Adela has reached the fourth circle in magic, a milestone that signifies high-tier control and power. Hyel narrowly blocks another incoming attack, noting its refined structure and dangerous trajectory. Adela confronts him, stating her evolution didn't happen overnight and was built through relentless effort. She reveals that this progress wasn't her limit, more strength lies beyond what she has already shown. Lifting her gaze toward the sky, Adela begins summoning an even greater force as a radiant source pulses above. Power gathers into a descending beam of energy as she raises her hand with calm determination. Concentrating deeply, she initiates a powerful incantation, preparing to unleash the next tier of her strength. Noticing a symbol appear mid-air, Hyel realizes a special detection magic is now in play, designed for battlefield control. A different mage explains the symbol's purpose, a mystic eye that grants enhanced awareness, similar to those used by elite tower masters. With this sensory upgrade, Adela's movements become sharper, and the pressure on Hyel intensifies rapidly. Determined, Adela declares she will now go all out, refusing to hold back any further in their duel. Her fierce gaze fixes on Hyel, daring him to reveal the same power he used to defeat the Emerald Turtle. Surrounded by magic circles, she ascends with overwhelming force, while Hyel braces for what's coming next from above. Hyel activates his mystic eye, unlocking a heightened state of perception to match Adela's magical presence. His vision sharpens instantly, enabling him to grasp every detail within the incoming barrage and redirect the flow of mana. As the attack alters mid-air, Adela realizes her magic has been disrupted, stunned by the unexpected interference. A peaceful night settles over the estate of Wai Songkul, where moonlight glows above the majestic mansion. gripping his wine glass tightly. Wei Sangkyul watches in disbelief. His voice trembles while calling out. Disturbed, he questions what kind of technique could possibly twist the trajectory of a spell so unnaturally. Shin In-hyuk stands before a screen replaying a combat scene, though puzzled by what he sees. Sitting across from him, Wei Sangkyul shares that Hale hasn't spoken to him about anything. Shin In-hyuk smirks, remarking that over the past year, Hale has grown bolder as the Archmage family's head. The duel continues to play across the screen. Strange magical sequences unfold as Hale unleashes unfamiliar patterns that neither of them fully understand. Reflecting on the past, Sangkyul acknowledges how Hale now keeps more secrets than he reveals. Shin In-hyuk agrees, recognizing his son's growth. While sipping wine, he remarks how leaving home truly shapes a person in unexpected ways. A hint of doubt creeps into Sangkyul's expression. He confesses that during the evaluation, he had assumed Hale's success was mere luck. Even while laughing awkwardly, he admits he never expected the boy to maintain that brilliance. In-hyuk, eyes narrowed, adds that Hale was always deemed incompatible with AI, marked as someone unlikely to achieve anything lasting within this magical framework. Back then, Hale's victory against Adela wasn't due to raw strength. Instead, his triumph stemmed from calculated technique and refined strategy. Sangkyul predicts that others will soon begin dissecting Hale's abilities. Once analyzed, the flaws and limits in his magic will inevitably be exposed. Confidently, he boasts about Adela's talent in analysis. With pride in his voice, he claims that her ability to break down magic is second to none. Wei Sangkyul's expression softens as he exhales, his thoughts shifting, although he initially doubted Hale's abilities. The ongoing battle reveals a fierce rain of spells directed at Adela. Despite her advanced defenses, the pressure from Hale's assault is undeniable. In a moment of quiet reflection, Sangkyul admits to In-hyuk that he underestimated Hale. The younger mage's strength had grown far beyond expectation. Adela once stood directionless after her early defeat, her pride and focus shattered. She lacked the drive to move forward. At that time, her gaze held no purpose. The spark that once defined her ambition had seemingly vanished beneath the weight of disappointment. Now, her eyes burn with renewed fire as she casts spells in radiant blue. Sangkyul smiles, grateful to Hale for reigniting her spirit. With Hale's image still on screen, In-hyuk nods in agreement. His son's return has been a turning point, not just for their family, but for others as well. A soft breeze drifts under the moonlight. The sky glows as the announcement echoes battle survival has ended. Across the field, Hale stands among the fading remnants of combat, catching his breath in silence. He pants heavily, eyes glowing with fatigue and fire. The toll of the battle is etched in every breath he takes. Adela slowly approaches through the mist. Though defeated, her presence remains composed, masking any bitterness. Hale speaks first, acknowledging the match's closeness. Adela, flustered, insists she held the advantage. The two stand in silence for a moment beneath the moonlit trees. Tension lingers, yet mutual respect begins to settle in. A faculty member chuckles from nearby, urging both students to return. The evaluation is over, and the outcome has been decided. The following day, Adela's pride remains unshaken. She raises her voice in frustration. Back in the hallway, Hale and Adela continue their dispute. He confidently declares himself the true winner. Adela counters with sharp reasoning, insisting she had begun reading the magical strategy behind his moves. Their debate is cut short by a fed-up student nearby. He expresses frustration over their noise, urging them to stop and return to their rooms. Tension flares when both Hale and Adela lash out at the interrupter. Their combined outburst startles him into silence. The student sulks quietly, mumbling that this was supposed to be his room. He only wanted to enjoy the battle footage with them. His disappointment grows as he gestures toward the table. Snacks, drinks, and even banana milk had been prepared especially for the small gathering. Soon, the mood shifts as the trio gathers to watch the replay. Adela complains about Sunchan blocking the screen, under daylight. Excitement rises as they prepare to start the video from the beginning. The length of the footage leaves them stunned. 14 hours later, night returns. Exhausted yet focused, the three remain seated, still watching the full match in silence. Sunchan mutters in disbelief, calling Adela an analysis monster for her unwavering focus through the entire session. Adela chuckles in response, smiling gently. The experience left her amused, not from the content. Leaning down to tuck Sunchan in with a blanket, she continues smiling. cherishing the unexpected warmth of the moment. Adela reflects on the challenge they endured, watching all 14 hours tested, even her endurance. She openly admits she thought someone would give up partway. Her gaze shifts toward Hyle, expecting agreement. Hale, surprisingly, echoes her thoughts. He too believed one of them would falter before the end. Yet here they were. Adela sits quietly, her expression softening. A smile crosses her face as she tells Hyle he has good friends. Hale responds with quiet humility. From his perspective, the people around him seem almost too good. A sudden shift in Adela's mood appears as she lowers her eyes. She apologizes without warning, leaving Hale slightly puzzled by her sudden change in tone. Adela recalls the past year where she deliberately kept her distance from Hale, though she pretended not to notice the changes in him. She admits that staying away was her way of trying to preserve her feelings. Now, with a heavy heart, Hale, however, dismisses the apology. He calmly explains that it was him who failed to respond to her unspoken efforts. Still reflective, Hale admits that he too chose distance. He reassures Adela that she doesn't need to feel guilty. Sun Chan, who had been listening and reacts in disbelief after overhearing that Adela also initially avoided Hyle. Hyle shifts the focus and declares that he's not the same person anymore. Time and effort have transformed him. Looking determined, Hyle clenches his fist and states he's no longer alone. The support of dependable allies now empowers him. A surge of magic forms in his palm. As his aura brightens, he prepares to unveil a new technique he's mastered. Energy gathers into a radiant sphere. With confidence, he unleashes the spell.